So right here in this general area is where the caretaker was living at when he went for a walk up this little off-road when he found her initially.
I wasn't even sure if it was real at first. I thought it might be some kind of a prank, you know. Actually, I did reach down and touch her hand. That feels like flesh and bone to me.
When we found Anna Repkina's body, we were able to see that her feet were probably down in about this location, and her head was pointed back towards the forest here. And one of the first things we noticed when we made our way to this landing is there was pieces of trash and there was garbage. One of the biggest pieces of evidence that we found in this case was a KFC bag. Along the edge of that clear bag, there was a receipt that had the date of the 14th, so April 14th, which is only a few days prior.
Who was Anna Repkina?
Anna was 27 years old, and she came from a good, strong family in Russia. She wanted somebody to love her, wanted to have kids, and so that's why she went on to the dating websites. She happened to find Will Hargrove.
He's always trying to make people laugh, making sure that everybody else is happy, trying to push them to become the better person that they can be.
He was complimentary to her. He sent her flowers from the United States to Russia. He paid attention to her.
With everything that he had explained to me, everything he had told me, Anna was the love of his life.
The sense that you got from Anna Repkina was that she was in love. This wasn't coming to the United States as some mail-order bride.
How does Michelle Chavez fit into this case?
Well, Michelle Chavez is the other woman. She is that third part of the triangle.
He made me feel special.
He has a charisma about him. It's like everything he's saying, he truly believes, and you believe it. He makes you believe it.
Especially if you're in love and you want to believe it.
Yeah.
And you were in love.
I was.
And it was always, I choose you.
It was.
How much pressure was he getting from Michelle to end it with Anna?
I know for a fact that Michelle didn't want Anna even over here in the States. He was basically given the ultimatum of one or the other. And 2 days later, Anna was found dead.
This is outside of Corvallis, quite a ways out in the Alsea area, and up a remote logging road.
Ryan Jocelyn and Amy Matusko, both deputy district attorneys in Benton County, Oregon, received an urgent call that a body had been found on April 17, 2017.
He and I were both on scene to take a look for ourselves. It's so important in a prosecutor's role that you understand the scene, not just from photos, but having been there.
Not too many people are going to be up in that area. But frankly, the fact that the body was discovered as quickly as it was pretty extraordinary.
Lead detective Lieutenant Chris Duffett says a local caretaker happened to be out walking his dog that day when he came across the body.
The caller was walking on this road on a day and a time in a place that he really should have never been. So we were very, very lucky to find her body. If it would have been any more time, we might have never found her.
The victim was identified as 27-year-old Moscow native Anna Repkina. She had been shot.
She was smart, intelligent. She had an office job working for IKEA. She loved cats. She loved to travel. Anna had a lot going for her. A lot of people liked her.
So how did a Russian woman who had a seemingly happy life meet her end on a remote logging road nearly 5,500 miles from home?
She had broken up with her boyfriend of 7 years and was really looking for that connection.
A year earlier, newly single Anna started looking for love online and joined a Russian social networking site. She found what she was looking for halfway across the world when she met 26-year-old Oregonian William Hargrove.
Then they started really chatting. They chatted a lot over Facebook. Then they started video conferencing. And that was happening on an almost daily basis.
Anna and Will found that they had a lot in common.
They really bonded over music. She very much loved music. She liked to go to rock concerts. They would have discussions about bands. She had a good sense of humor. She would constantly send funny memes, and she connected with her friends and her family that way.
Will and Anna exchanged thousands of messages, imagining their future together if Anna came to Oregon.
He definitely had the gift of gab.
The gift of gab. He could talk a good game?
He could. He could talk a very good game.
Will's friend and former roommate, Jamie Klotz.
He and I had things in common. Cars. He works on cars. I work on cars. I'm more Harry Potter. He's more the Avengers kind of genre, but we could nerd out on things like that. He actually took me to see my first Avengers movie. He was a likable guy, a jokester. He just liked to laugh and have fun. I enjoyed being around him.
Will worked as a mechanic at a local auto dealership. In his free time, he'd meet up with friends like Joseph Thompson at the Peacock Bar and Grill.
We would play pool over there on Sunday nights and just basically ended up hanging out, doing karaoke. I don't know how many times me and him would be sitting there playing pool and he'd just have women walk up from the bar, just sit there, talk to him. He was very charismatic. He had the personality, the presence.
Was he a player?
No, not necessarily.
Will was such a good friend that Joseph called him his brother.
We were both in the military. A lot of the training and stuff we had went through was similar, and it helped pull us together.
What branch of the service were you in?
Army.
And Will?
I believe he was Marines. He said that he used to be stationed in Russia.
Will seemed to have an affinity for all things Russian, and his online relationship with Anna took off. Anna decided to fly to the States to spend the holidays with Will in Oregon and see if their virtual love would feel the same in reality.
December of 2016, she traveled here and spent a couple weeks with William Hargrove.
But the road to romance had an unexpected detour.
There was a problem when she first came out in December to see Mr. Hargrove. She mistakenly mixed up Portland, Maine for Portland, Oregon. And she was stranded in Portland, Maine.
Amidst the chaos of flight changes, Anna messaged Will, building the anticipation to finally be together. Anna eventually made it to the right Portland and into the arms of Will Hargrove. During her visit, she posted highlights of their whirlwind romance, including photos of their trips to the coast, Will's cars, and even a Christmas wish scrawled out to her family back home.
She came here for love.
At the conclusion of this trip, she actually became engaged to William Hargrove, and they had plans to get married in the future.
Anna returned home to Russia after 10 days with a souvenir, an engagement ring from Will, and plans to pack up her life in Russia and move to Oregon with the promise of marriage.
She was excited about the wedding. She was talking about all the different style dresses and what she really wanted.
But there was going to be an obstacle in Anna's path to love.
I'm Michelle Chavez, and I was Will Hargrove's girlfriend.
In 2015, 33-year-old Michelle Chavez was living with her husband and 2 children in Albany, Oregon. Unfortunately, all was not right in the marriage.
Our relationship at that point in time really wasn't one. It was like roommates that just happened to be married. Slept in the same bed, but that was about it. Didn't really talk.
Michelle met Will Hargrove while she was working as a cab driver.
It was a kind of slow time in the summer, and I was waiting at the bar, waiting for people to call to go pick people up.
What was your first impression of him?
God, he's short.
God, he's short.
Yes, God, he's short. Yeah. He is short.
But that first impression gave way to something much more for Chavez, who was so unhappy at home.
He made you feel like you were in the sun when he talked to you. He had a way of being able to look at me, and I felt like I was actually seen. I felt beautiful. I felt like I was wanted.
And so Michelle and Will became much more than friends.
It wasn't a planned thing. It wasn't like it went off in my head. I was like, I'm going to have a relationship with him. It just progressed that way. This is one of him and our mutual friend, Jamie.
He was willing to give her what she needed, affection, attention.
The following year, 2016, the relationship grew to a new and somewhat unusual level, with Will renting a spare bedroom in Michelle's house, the same one she shared with her husband and kids, though it's not clear what Michelle's husband knew about her relationship with Will.
He only had to pay $300 a month and his own food, unless he liked whatever it was we were making at the time. Honestly, pretty sweet deal.
Michelle even gave Will her wedding ring, a promise that she'd leave her husband soon. But it wasn't enough for Will.
If Will had this relationship with Michelle and was in love with Michelle, why was he going on internet dating sites?
I think that it had to do with jealousy. Michelle was going to leave her husband on her terms, and it wasn't going fast enough. If he could make her jealous, then maybe it would speed things up.
Which may explain why, when Anna visited Will over Christmas, they stayed at Michelle's house, under Michelle's nose. It seems Anna knew nothing of Will's other relationship.
They were in his room most of the time. On New Year's Eve, they were getting ready to go out. Will was like, oh, maybe I should introduce you guys. And then she shook my hand, and she said her name was Anna. I said it was nice to meet her.
But Michelle wouldn't be quite that welcoming when Anna returned a few months later, on March 1st, 2017, with the intention of becoming Will's wife.
I was like, well, she's not staying here. She's not staying in my house.
So Will and Anna rented an apartment in Corvallis, a small college town not far from Michelle's home. With Will working and without a job herself, Anna spent time on her own, even joining the local gym. Life wasn't as easy for Michelle.
What did you want?
Simple. Just to be happy.
And you thought you'd found that with him?
I thought I had. But you have to actually know somebody to find those things, I think.
Turns out, actually knowing Will was going to be a bit of a challenge for everyone. Even with his new fiancée in America, he split his nights between his 2 love interests.
He really continued to float between those 2 places, back at Michelle's place and then back at the apartment with Anna.
With no clue as to why Will kept disappearing, Anna often had to resort to contacting his friends to find her own fiancé.
She's seeing him gone. In the text messages, she's reaching out to his friends. Do you know where he is? What's going on? She's becoming suspicious. Where is he going? What is going on with this time?
As it happened, Anna's instincts were right on the money.
This man was a fraud and relied heavily on deception to convince other people he was the type of person he wanted to be perceived as.
And he wanted to be something greater than he was. He told a number of people he was in the armed forces. He was never in the armed forces.
Then there's the matter of a certain engagement ring. Anna's ring, or was it?
Her and I had friended each other on Facebook. And then I saw her wearing my wedding ring.
What?
Yeah.
The ring that had been Michelle's wedding ring had been repurposed when Will proposed to Anna.
Will told Anna that this ring belonged to his grandmother and had sentimental value to him.
Anna had no idea she was wearing Michelle's ring, and on March 22nd, she was shocked to get a Facebook message from Michelle about sharing Will.
At this point, all Anna knows is that Michelle Chavez is the crazy ex-girlfriend, because that's what Will Hargrove has told her. And so Anna says, no way. You get out of our lives.
Something about me being a bitch, I believe. And I was like, I'm just getting started at being one.
Were you threatening her?
No, just being mouthy. I just meant that if you think I'm being bitchy now, like, just watch.
Just 3 days later, Anna and Will headed to the Oregon coast for their wedding ceremony.
Anna brought a wedding dress with her from Russia. She had her ring that William proposed to her with.
On the way, Will decided to stop at the local Walmart to buy their wedding bands, leaving bride-to-be Anna in the car.
While he's in Walmart shopping for his wedding ring, he is on the phone with Michelle Chavez. And he is discussing their relationship and whether or not he's going to come see her that night.
And you had no clue when he said he was in Walmart
No.
that he was like headed to a wedding?
No, none at all.
But as it would turn out, Anna and Will were not headed to a wedding.
They go to the beach and the officiant doesn't show up. So he has a phone call in which he relays to both the witnesses and to Anna that the officiant couldn't make it, he was ill, something came up.
And William Hargrove was actually calling a couple video game stores to presumably pretend he was talking to a wedding official to show him how mad he was about this day.
He never arranged for an officiant. He never got a marriage license. He didn't have anything set up.
Sadly, there'd be only one portrait of the bride that day, picking up some fast food.
The McDonald's drive-thru video is the only video or photo taken on Anna Repkina's wedding day. And you can actually see Anna Repkina in her wedding dress in William Hargrove's vehicle.
Seemingly oblivious to Will's feelings for Michelle, Anna set her heart on a rescheduled wedding date. But Michelle had other plans.
So, did you give him an ultimatum?
At one point I did. I told him he had to pick one. I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. I just didn't want her here.
So you pressured him to choose.
I did.
In April 2017, the relationship between Michelle and Will hit a crossroads, with Michelle insisting Will finally choose between her and Anna. Will told Michelle she was his choice.
So April 19th was the deadline.
Right.
For both of you.
Correct.
You were going to be done with your marriage, and he was supposed to...
She was supposed to be gone, or whatever he was going to leave her.
How much pressure did Michelle put on Will to get rid of Anna?
A lot. There was a lot of pressure. There's a lot of back and forth in there between all the text messages where 1 minute it's like, clean out your stuff and get out. The next minute is, I love you, I want to be together. But we can't do that if she's here.
There are texts between the two of you with you pressuring him to choose. And at one point you told him to fix it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
In the general sense, fix it in the sense that you would take care of it, not take care of it like take somebody out. You would end the relationship, that you would be done.
Will told Michelle he'd tried to send Anna packing many times, but she wouldn't go.
So Michelle perceived Anna as this girl who kind of never got the hint that she was being told to leave, and she kept coming back, although Anna never knew any of this was really happening.
On Saturday night, April 15th, just 4 days shy of the deadline they'd set, Michelle was supposed to have dinner at Will's apartment.
It wasn't until about 8 p.m. that night that William Hargrove tells Michelle Chavez that she actually can't come over, that Anna showed back up, that Anna's back again, he'll take care of it.
What followed was yet another heated text conversation. Not a surprise, according to Detective Chris Dale, who says Michelle and Will exchanged more than 13,000 texts during their relationship.
Constant checking in every morning to make sure that he's woken up on time to get to work. It didn't seem as if there was an hour in a day that went by where they were not communicating.
But on that day, there was one critical text.
So Will Hargrove sent a message to Miss Chavez, I will have this permanently fixed by 1800 tomorrow.
So he'll have the situation of Anna Repkina handled by 6 p.m. The following day, which was Easter Sunday.
That assurance was not enough for Michelle. She continued texting and calling Will, who turned off his phone. As the hours passed with no reply, Michelle's hope that Will was truly fixing the problem with Anna vanished.
I guess you made your choice. Okay. I'll let you be. Why? I just want to know why. I'll let you be. But I just want to know why.
The next morning, Michelle headed to her mother's house for Easter. Jamie was there as well.
She said that she'd spent the night ugly crying. And even though I knew what the probable answer was going to be, I still asked her, like, why? And she looks at me and she goes, why do you think? And I said, because of Will.
Meanwhile, back at his apartment, Will was dealing with a very different but urgent problem: his car insurance policy.
They've been sending him notices that if he doesn't have it paid by midnight on the 16th, they're going to cancel his insurance.
He tells them that he knows this insurance lapses that evening and he needs to get it extended for free because if it doesn't, he's going to lose his vehicle loan and they're going to repossess it immediately.
Okay. Can you guys hold off until the 21st so I can get you paid?
Unfortunately, once it is pending cancellation for non-payment, we don't have the ability to move the dates at all. And this one, yeah, so it'll be canceled effective tonight at midnight.
Just after 4:30 p.m., Michelle's phone rang. It was Will.
And what did he say?
That he had been out at the coast. He was on his way back in and he'd almost hit a deer. He ran off the road and he had a flat tire. And he needed help.
How did he sound?
Shaken. Sad.
And so Michelle left her family's Easter celebration to go and meet Will in the town of Alsea. He waited for her at a local convenience store.
You can see him walk to the cooler where he gets a Pepsi. He goes and gets his candy bar, and then he ultimately gets a pack of cigarettes.
About an hour later, Michelle arrived.
She parks on the side of that store. We see her get out of her Prius.
I asked him what happened. Where have you been? And he told me that he, after we had talked, that they'd gotten into an argument and he said horrible, mean things to her. And that she had turned around and taken her suitcases and had walked out.
Thinking Anna had finally left the apartment for good, Michelle says she and Will got into his car.
We drove for a little bit, then we pulled off and we were talking for a few, and then honestly we ended up having sex in the front seat.
So you had makeup sex, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. Makeup sex in the front seat.
Michelle and Will then went their separate ways, with Michelle returning to her family's Easter celebration.
She came back. She was in a good mood. She was smiling. She was happy. She looked total 180 from what she looked like in the morning.
Will headed home, but he made a few stops along the way. first at an ATM where he withdrew money from Anna's bank account.
Made a $200 withdrawal from this machine and then engaged in some conversation with some employees at that gas station, where he actually ended up hugging one of them and crying about the fact that his girlfriend, Anna Repkina, had left him.
His girlfriend, whose account he just took $200 from.
Yes.
Will then headed to a second ATM.
He goes to the Chase Bank and withdraws an additional $600 of Anna Repkina's money.
So now William Hargrove has $800 that he stole from Anna Repkina's bank account. At about 9:30 p.m. on that same night, he drives to another bank and he ends up depositing $160 of that cash into his bank account.
Will had just one more chore to take care of that evening.
Thank you for calling Progressive.
Y'all should have a card on file for me, and I need to make payment, please.
Several hours earlier, he has no money.
All good then? Everything's done?
Yeah, everything is taken care of. You are insured as we're speaking.
Excellent. Thank you very much, ma'am.
My pleasure. Have a good night, William.
All of a sudden, he has money, and he's taking it out of Anna Repkina's bank account, who's found dead the next day.
On April 17, 2017, the day after Easter Sunday, Anna Repkina was found with a shotgun blast to the back of her head, her body left like one more piece of garbage.
Anna was discarded in this landing with the other trash. Fast food bags, cigarette cartons, candy wrappers that were here. And at that point, we don't know what's evidence and what's not, because that could either be huge evidence in this case, or it could be just trash.
While investigators hoped to find a connection to Anna's killer, Will was sending Anna texts showing concern about her whereabouts after the fight he said they'd had the day before. Will also launched a bizarre deep dive online, researching time travel.
He is trying to ask for help in how to travel back in time, back to April 16th, in order to correct a horrible mistake.
His words, correct a horrible mistake.
Yes.
He even went so far as to message strangers on WhatsApp for advice to help someone he called his best friend. Will was apparently so desperate for this information, he offered a reward: his soul. In addition to his strange internet search, Will went on a shopping spree, spending more of that cash he stole from Anna, buying candy, video games, and toys.
He bought a $100-something set of Legos from a Walmart.
Will reached out to a friend named Kevin Thomas,
saying that he's spending money he shouldn't, trying to distract himself.
On Wednesday, April 19th, investigators struck a lead with the trash found next to Anna's body. A KFC receipt from 3 days earlier with a crucial timestamp.
Was there a name on the receipt?
So on the receipt, there was no name. KFC told us that there was actually a car that pulled up on that Friday, and there was 2 purchases made from that car. There was one made with a debit card that came back to Kevin Thomas, and another purchase that was made with cash.
With only one name to work with, investigators headed to Kevin's Corvallis home.
Now we're trying to put some pieces together for our case. The garbage we found was, I think, something you bought last week from KFC.
Okay.
Do you know about that?
Yeah, me and my brother go to KFC.
Go to KFC?
On Fridays.
What's your brother's name, Kevin?
Will Hargrove.
Kevin and Will became pals at the Peacock Bar and Grill. Kevin, like Joseph Thompson, called Will his brother. Police continued talking to Kevin at the sheriff's office, where he offered a revelation. A few weeks earlier, Will had asked to borrow something that belonged to Kevin: his shotgun.
Did he say why he wanted to borrow it?
Just so he was going to go up and go shooting in the woods and just kind of blow off some steam.
What's more, Kevin told police that Will had yet to return the gun. With this new information, investigators headed straight to Michelle's house, where Will was staying, to question him. He answered the door.
We're here following up on a case we're working, and your name came across and I want to talk to you.
Okay.
Will then lied to investigators, telling them that he and Michelle drove up to Alsea together on Easter Sunday.
Drove into Alsea, stopped at the little market there, picked up a pack of cigarettes and drove back.
Did you dump some trash there when you were there?
Yeah, I did. On the side of the building, on the side of the general store.
But that trash that Will claimed to have left at the store was the very same that was found next to Anna's body. Investigators asked Will to come to the sheriff's office. While Will was getting ready to leave, he texted Michelle to ensure their stories matched. At the sheriff's office, investigators got to the question of Anna.
What do you know about her?
Almost nothing.
How'd you guys meet?
Met her downtown Corvallis.
Just walking around?
Yeah.
Will played down their relationship, even calling Anna psychotic.
We went on 2 dates and then decided, I told her it wasn't going to be anything more than that. And I was happy to keep hanging out with her, but that was all it was going to be.
How long ago was that?
Last time I saw her was middle of March.
Middle of March.
Cut it off because she decided to put on Facebook that we were engaged.
She posted that?
Yeah.
After 2 days?
Oh yeah, and it brought hell down upon me.
From who?
Michelle.
Lieutenant Duffett turned up the heat on Will and got right to the point.
So, Will, your trash was found where somebody was killed.
I'm sorry, to what?
Okay. That's what we're talking about here.
You guys are looking at me for this?
Your trash, like my partner said, was found there.
Your stuff was found at a scene where somebody died.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking to you, there's a lot of inconsistencies with your story about what happened.
That's when Will stopped talking and asked for a lawyer.
No offense, guys. You've been really kind, and I'd like to. And I don't mind that. But the moment that you say somebody was killed out there, that no, it just, no.
Okay. So, William Hargrove, I need you to stand up and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for the murder of Anna Repkina.
Will Hargrove was placed under arrest, but did police have the right person in custody?
If anyone on the face of it looks like they have a motive to kill Anna, it's the other woman. It's Michelle. How can you be so sure that she had nothing to do with Anna's murder?
Just hours after Will Hargrove was arrested for Anna Repkina's murder,
What else is going to go over at this point?
Michelle Chavez was brought in for questioning about what she was doing Easter Sunday.
Can you tell me what this is about, though?
She starts out on the wrong foot, telling police what Will had texted her to say, that they'd driven to Alsea together.
And he picked you up at your mom's house at that time?
He did.
Okay.
Immediately, Michelle reverses herself, admitting what she had just stated was false.
That's a little bit of a lie. He called me. He was going to pick me up. And then he did it.
Why did you lie to them? Honestly, I wasn't thinking, and I don't have a good answer.
I want you to know right now that Will's under arrest for murder.
Okay. Okay.
Investigators say Michelle didn't seem at all surprised when they told her Will had just been arrested for killing Anna.
How are you not extremely upset right now to know that the person who you were romantically involved with?
I am very upset right now. I'm very upset right now. I don't understand how that can be a person that I have spent the last year and a half with.
I was numb. It didn't make sense.
Over a year later, in July 2018, Will was formally indicted for Anna's murder. The defense would go on to spin an entirely different theory of the crime, one that had Michelle pulling the trigger after arriving from her family's Easter celebration. According to them,
the defendant had taken Michelle Chavez up to the location to have a conversation with Anna, and Michelle had taken the gun out from him and shot Anna.
a few pieces of evidence had given investigators cause for concern. For one thing, Michelle mysteriously ended up in possession of Anna's phone. Michelle blames Will.
I didn't realize it was hers. He had given it to me, I guess, the night before he got arrested.
Michelle's own cell phone records showed that a month before Anna's body was found, Michelle had visited that exact spot on the logging road. Michelle claims that's only because Will brought her there. But could she have been scouting the location?
The defense says that Will loved Anna, that he was starting a life with her, that you're the one with all the reasons to kill her. What do you say to that?
I had no reason to want her dead. No reason to kill her. I do get how it looks. But her being dead is nothing I ever wanted. I want her to go home.
Did you ever tell Will to kill Anna?
No.
Days after Will's arrest, his friend Kevin's shotgun was recovered from the back of Will's vehicle. Evidence supports there'd only been one killer.
Will Hargrove's fingerprint was on the shotgun. Michelle Chavez's DNA was never on that shotgun. Michelle Chavez's fingerprints were never on that shotgun.
Piecing together various security cameras, investigators tracked Will's drive with Anna to Alsea.
We see the defendant's car that's distinct for various reasons traveling along a certain path, and it gave us location as well as time frames.
But it was GPS tracking that gave police an even bigger piece of the puzzle, with Will's phone pinging from the murder site from 4:35 to 4:48 that afternoon.
The reason we have that is because he called Michelle Chavez.
Michelle Chavez, who was still at her mother's house at that Easter celebration.
We don't have any forensic data or information that was left at that crime scene to suggest that Michelle was at the crime scene on that day.
And remember that video of Will shopping at the Alsea convenience store as he waited for Michelle to arrive?
Towards the top of his bald head, you can see what appears to be smaller black dots.
Raising the question, could it have been blood spatter?
We can't tell you if that was blood. We can't tell you what that was. But we can tell you it was there before he met Michelle Chavez. Subsequent photo comparison afterwards showed that those spots weren't moles. They weren't anything that was there permanently.
There was one more heart-wrenching piece of evidence found in the trash alongside Anna's body from another fast food drive-thru.
A receipt from McDonald's in Newport, Oregon, dated on March 25th of 2017.
March 25th, the day that should have been Anna's wedding day. Will's trial got underway in October 2019.
The original witness list was 131 people. Eventually, I believe close to 70 people testified.
The trial took a month. Will Hargrove was found guilty of Anna's murder, as well as identity theft and 2 counts of second-degree theft for stealing that money from Anna's bank account.
I want to talk about Anna Repkina for a minute. And I placed her photo on the witness stand to remind everyone of a life that was lost. Contrary to speculation,
Will's sentencing was held in January 2020.
She came here with hopes and dreams to find somebody that was loving her and start a family. She doesn't have that anymore. The defendant very nearly got away with this crime. It was his own trash that betrayed him.
You were receiving a sentence of life imprisonment.
Will received a life sentence with a possibility of parole after 25 years. Michelle says living under the scrutiny of people in town wondering what she knew or didn't know became all too much.
How bad did it get for you?
Bad enough. Bad.
She had an incident in which she couldn't take the stress anymore. And almost didn't get the police there in time.
Michelle says that in June 2018, she tried to take her own life.
I tried to die. I'm still here. It didn't work.
As for the young Moscow native who flew to the U.S. with the promise of love,
I think you have to remember Anna as the sweet, loving, caring person who put herself out there to be loved. Because Anna was loved. She was loved alive, and she was loved after.
"48 Hours. Don't miss an episode."
The evil clowns you've seen in the movies, well, it came to life in this case.
When your mom was growing up, was she fascinated with clowns?
She was. She even painted pictures of them. My mother, Marlene Warren, was a beautiful person. She was loving, caring, kind.
On May 26, 1990, a woman answered her door in front of her 21-year-old son and saw a clown at the door handing her balloons and flowers.
That was the worst day of my life. We were eating breakfast. We saw the colors of the reflections through the glass. It looked like a clown costume. My mother opened the door and I heard, "How pretty." And I heard bang. I saw her fall, and I ran toward her as the clown was walking away, and I saw that she'd been shot in the face. At that moment, I felt my heart, my soul just rip out of my body.
What did you see on the clown's face?
Well, it was a white face, nose, orangish red hair, and it was just a clown suit.
What does the clown do?
Calmly walks right back to the car, like nothing happened.
A person disguised as a clown walked up to Marlene Warren's Aero Club home in Wellington and shot her in the mouth.
I was working as a prosecutor here in this office when it happened, and it was big news.
Meanwhile, at her home, investigators gather evidence searching for clues.
Killing with a great costume to conceal one's identity. And anybody passing by would probably say, "Oh, it's not nice. Somebody's getting flowers." It wouldn't be suspicious, and it would certainly make for the perfect crime.
Marlene Warren was someone without any known enemies, someone who cared deeply about her family, and they lived in a home in a pretty secluded part of Palm Beach County.
Michael Warren was married to Marlene Warren. Michael was a local businessman in the car business. The Warrens' marriage seemed to be an ideal marriage, but for the people on the inside that knew better, Marlene was expressing issues with Michael Warren. The people closest to Michael Warren that worked with him knew there was something wrong because they were observing Michael Warren's interactions with a woman by the name of Sheila Keene.
And the rumors was what about Sheila and Mike?
Well, it was more than a rumor that Sheila Keene and Michael Warren were having an affair. It was not hidden from any of the employees.
In the hours after the murder of Marlene Warren, the suspects became clear it was Sheila Keene and was Michael Warren, but Michael Warren had an alibi. Michael and Sheila thought that they could get away with anything.
It took over 30 years to make sense of it all.
This house was the scene of a bizarre murder.
That shooter, a clown carrying flowers and balloons.
It's easy to see why this case has so much interest. Who isn't afraid of a killer clown?
The 1990 murder of Marlene Warren, shot by someone dressed as a clown, haunted not just the public, but the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office. Despite identifying 2 suspects, the case for decades went unsolved. Dave Ehrenberg is the current state attorney.
This was an assassination. This was not a random act of violence. This was not a robbery.
The unknowingness of this heinous crime, the fear, it was hell.
Joe Ahrens was 21, living at home with his stepfather Mike and his mother Marlene when she was murdered.
She was a good mother. Everything she did, she took pride in.
The morning of May 26, 1990 had started as a cheerful one. Joe, recuperating from a broken leg, was having breakfast at home with his mom and 3 friends when they saw a clown approaching, carrying balloons and flowers.
And we kind of figured I had a cast on. Somebody was sending to heal and for gesture.
This is like, oh, what a delightful gift to cheer you up with your broken leg, right?
My mother opened the door, and then we heard bang, and she fell. At that point, we knew something was wrong. My mother was struggling to breathe, and then I jumped to the phone. Called 911 right away.
As the clown slowly and silently walked to a car, Joe and some of his friends tried to get a closer look at anything that might help describe the disguised attacker.
The only thing that didn't have any color on it was the shoes that were solid black and the white gloves.
And did you notice anything about the clown's eyes?
I did. That's the most thing I saw was the big brown eyes.
And the clown gets in the car. What kind of car was it?
It was a white LeBaron.
And does the car peel off?
No. It just goes into gear and drives off like nothing happened.
While some of Joe's friends remained at his house waiting for EMS, Joe got into Marlene's car and tried to chase down the clown, but he couldn't catch up. He is seen here back home afterwards, where TV news crews were on the scene. Meanwhile, with the clown's balloons and flowers left behind, Marlene was rushed to the hospital, barely alive, where she was put on life support.
I kept telling her I love her and I don't want her to go and please don't leave me.
2 days later, with no hope of a recovery, life support was removed and Marlene died.
I knew my life was going to change and I knew it was going to become hell because she wasn't here to help me.
A top clue the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office had was Joe's description of the clown. About 6'1", tall, skinny, with orange hair, a red nose, and a big orange smile. And male. And those balloons left behind, they now seemed cruelly mocking. "You're the greatest," one said. The other had a picture of Snow White and the 7 dwarfs. Authorities had also spoken with Joe's stepfather, Mike Warren, who they learned had an alibi. He was in a car with friends heading to a racetrack when the shooting took place.
Growing up with Mike Warren, what was that like? Was he a good dad?
I thought so. That's the only father I knew. I mean, I was really young when my real father and mother separated.
Marlene and Mike were married when Joe was just 3. They had built a comfortable life in Wellington, Florida, an affluent suburb. Marlene owned several businesses, including apartment complexes, and the couple ran Bargain Motors, specializing in used cars and rentals. While business was good, the marriage, says Joe, was troubled. He says his mother became convinced Mike was having an affair, making her fearful.
She said, if anything does happen to me, your father did it.
She said that to you?
I told her, no way, he would never do anything like that. She said, don't put it past him.
Marlene shared that same fear with her mother, Shirley Twing.
She says, if anything happens to me, Mike did it.
We interviewed Shirley in 2017 when 48 Hours started investigating Marlene's murder.
That's an ominous thing to say. Did you sense fear in her voice?
Sure. Yes, I did.
So when Shirley learned her daughter had been murdered, her mind went to Mike.
Right away. I figured Mike had something to do with it, that's for damn sure.
But Mike had that alibi, so authorities were looking for someone else. And when they visited Bargain Motors, Mike's place of business, one name kept popping up. That woman with whom Mike was supposedly having an affair.
Everybody at the Bargain Motors were reporting that you should look first at Sheila Keene.
Aletha McRoberts, an assistant state attorney in Palm Beach County, has worked on the case from the beginning.
And within the next day or so, tips were being called in that you really should investigate Sheila Keene and Michael Warren.
They were definitely seeing one another.
Della Ward worked at Bargain Motors with Mike Warren.
He had a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy, and people just were drawn to him, especially women.
One of those women, Della believed, was Sheila Keene.
I found her very nice, very bubbly. You knew the way she looked at Michael, you loved him, you could see it.
Sheila, who also had a reputation for toughness, was a repo woman, repossessing cars at Bargain Motors.
To do repos, you have to have some kind of guts. She told me, I keep a gun for my protection, because people are crazy what they do.
Sheila told investigators she was out working at the time of Marlene's murder.
She claimed that she was looking for repossession vehicles, but she was unable to provide any address that she went to so that they could follow up and confirm it.
As for the affair, both Sheila and Mike told investigators they were just friends. But that's not what authorities learned when they talked to Sheila's neighbors.
The neighbors at that apartment complex believed that Michael Warren and Sheila Keene were husband and wife.
Is there any doubt in your mind that there was a romantic relationship?
There's no doubt. And they didn't hide it.
An affair, though, isn't necessarily a motive for murder.
Did anyone profit financially from Marlene's death?
Yes. So Michael Warren profited largely. The properties and assets that they owned together were in her name. So by her predeceasing him, he was able to obtain 100% of the assets.
Investigators were also trying to locate local stores that had recently sold clown outfits. Deborah Offord had been working at a costume shop when 2 nights before Marlene's murder, a customer knocked at the door at closing time.
She wanted to see the clown costumes. I said, can you come back tomorrow? And she said, no, I need something right now.
Deborah told investigators the customer paid cash, buying a clown suit, an orange wig, makeup, and a red clown nose.
She was, I would say, about 5'10", long, thick, straight, like chocolate color hair, big brown eyes.
Detectives later presented Deborah with a photo lineup that included a picture of Sheila Keene. Deborah identified Keene and one other woman as possibly being the person who bought the clown costume. The sheriff's office also believed they located where the shooter bought those flowers and balloons. This supermarket.
The buyer described as a white female with dark brown hair.
The description of the customer given by the worker at the supermarket, brown hair, and at the costume store, brown hair, brown eyes, was consistent with Sheila Keene. And there was Sheila's reported affair with Mike Warren. It was intriguing circumstantial evidence, but would it be enough to make an arrest?
Before they turned the machine off on my mother.
God, I wish you could be here with me.
I told her that I loved her very much and that we were going to get justice.
As Joe Aarons mourned the loss of his mother, Marlene, investigators continued looking for additional evidence tying Sheila Keene to Marlene Warren's murder.
You talk about this case to anyone, and the first place people go is, yeah, it's the mistress. So investigators focused on Sheila Keene.
And soon, a big break when detectives located this abandoned white Chrysler LeBaron, matching the description witnesses gave of the getaway car.
What was found inside that Chrysler LeBaron?
There was synthetic fibers, similar type fibers to a clown wig.
They were orange, the same color as the wig Joe Aarons says the assailant was wearing. Also inside the car, they found a human hair. It was brown, like Sheila Keene's.
Sheriff's detectives executed a search warrant at the home of Sheila Keene.
Inside Sheila Keene's closet, detectives say they recovered orange fibers that a forensic examination later concluded were similar to the ones found in the Chrysler LeBaron. And another breakthrough was made when Sheila's hair from her apartment was compared to the one recovered from the getaway car.
That was scientifically, microscopically examined and found to be consistent.
Consistent with Sheila's hair, but DNA technology was still in its infancy in 1990, and scientists were unable to make a definitive connection. There were other challenges for investigators. The gun used to kill Marlene and the actual costume the killer clown wore were never found. And remember, Joe thought the attacker was a 6-foot-tall man. Sheila didn't fit either of those descriptions.
We're talking about an event that took seconds. Glances of this clown was a second or two.
Also, McRoberts says any eyewitness would have a hard time describing someone in a baggy clown costume, makeup, and a wig.
It's basically a clown is a clown.
And there was Sheila's alleged affair with Mike Warren. Those fiber and hair results, and those sales clerks at the costume and grocery stores whose description of the customer purchasing the clown outfit, balloons, and flowers was consistent with Sheila.
This sounds like the evidence is really building up. It's like you've got enough there to make an arrest. What happens?
Well, there was certainly argument about that and opinions that differed at the time. And then there's an indecision about, do I do it now or should we keep trying and get a little bit more?
As investigators looked for more evidence, they discovered that Mike Warren's business, Bargain Motors, was connected to the suspected getaway car. They learned an employee stole the car from a competitor several weeks before the murder.
And that's how they got the Chrysler LeBaron.
Sheriff's detectives spent about 5 hours Thursday night searching the offices of Bargain Motors at...
And as they investigated Mike Warren's business, they discovered widespread fraud, charging him with racketeering, insurance fraud, and odometer tampering. He ultimately was convicted on 43 counts of fraud and sent to prison.
It was for fraud, and so you just can't extrapolate one to the next. I mean, there's no evidence that he's a murderer. We do have our suspicions, though.
He was not charged with any crime in connection with Marlene's murder. And Warren felt he was a victim in this case, sentiments he shared in a radio interview before he went to prison.
They wanted to put me out of business.
Warren speculated that Marlene might actually have been the victim of an angry tenant or car buyer.
I really can't think of a reason why, other than the fact of the type of businesses that we're in, as far as them landlords and crossing a few people by repossessing their car.
But law enforcement did not think Marlene Warren's murder was the work of a disgruntled tenant or customer. And as the years passed, the case grew cold. And as for Sheila Keene, she seemed to disappear.
Nobody ever brought her name up again.
For many years, I was suffering in despair.
After Mike Warren went to prison, Joe says he and his stepfather became estranged. And as he continued to grieve the loss of his mother, he was consumed by her case going unsolved.
And give me a sense of what problems you fell into after your mother's murder.
Wow, where do we start? Alcoholism, drugs, you name it.
It was especially painful, says Joe, on each passing anniversary of the shooting.
I would blow up that day and go get drunk, and just go to her gravesite. It was sad.
Would you go out to her grave to talk to her?
I did, a lot. To try to find answers, but I was so confused. I was getting nothing. I was just lost.
I miss you. I wish you could help me through these hard times.
Joe eventually emerged from the fog of drugs and despair. With that behind him, he became increasingly certain of who murdered his mother.
I concluded that Sheila was the one that did it.
She probably never thought in a million years she'd be held accountable for her crimes. She thought she got away with it.
These are paintings that Marlene had painted when she was about 14 years old. I kind of grin because I can almost see her doing this.
Shirley Twing and her daughter Marlene shared a fascination with clowns.
And over here...
In Shirley's home, she even kept a room full of clown art and figurines.
This one says to me, things will get better.
The sad, sometimes unsettling images brought comfort to Shirley, despite the fact that a clown had so brutally ended her daughter's life.
I don't hate clowns. I just hate one.
Although the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office hadn't given up on solving Marlene's murder, 27 long years had passed without an arrest. Then, by 2017, a cold case unit made a breakthrough. State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg finally had new, important evidence.
The hairs that were found in the LeBaron were able to be traced to Sheila Keene through DNA technology.
With that new DNA match, detectives believed they could now definitively connect Sheila to the alleged getaway car and to Marlene Warren's murder. And when sheriffs found suspect Sheila Keene, they were blown away to learn whom she had married.
After Michael Warren got out of prison, he reconnected with Sheila Keene. Here's someone whose wife had been murdered, and he just married the chief suspect.
What did that tell you?
When you combine the fact that the two of them were in an affair at the time of the murder, and then later they got married, it did seem like mission accomplished.
That marriage was in 2002. The Warrens, now middle-aged, settled into a new life in Tennessee, running this burger joint called Purple Cow. She took Mike's last name, but in an interesting twist, Assistant State Attorney Aletha McRoberts says she changed her first name.
Sheila Keene Warren introduced herself to their friends in that life that her name was Debbie. She had dyed her hair blonde, changed her name, and was living a full life.
We would have dinners. They were wonderful cooks.
The Warrens befriended Brooke Blevins,
This is Mike Warren's house.
a neighbor at a weekend property the couple purchased in the Virginia mountains. When we spoke to Brooke in 2018, she said she knew Mike's wife as Debbie and was told it was a childhood nickname.
Her dad nicknamed her that when she was small.
I never called her Sheila. I always called her Debbie.
Former Purple Cow employees Ashley Sexton and Cynthia Swafford say they knew Debbie as a tough boss,
I mean, she was awful aggressive, mean.
and even heard an alarming rumor about her past.
The rumor around Purple Cow when we worked there was Debbie killed Mike's ex-wife. I thought they was blowing off steam. I was like, okay, whatever. But the rumors said it more than once, even to where we knew she dressed up like a clown.
According to an employee, Sheila had appeared in clown makeup at the restaurant one year during Halloween. By the fall of 2017, the Warrens had sold the business and retired full-time to the house in Virginia. Meanwhile, State Attorney Ehrenberg felt the case against Sheila had only gotten stronger.
When you combine the fact that they got married and seemingly lived happily ever after with the new DNA breakthrough, we're able to get enough evidence to make an arrest.
On September 26, 2017, 27 years after Marlene's murder, authorities arrested Sheila Keene Warren driving on a road near their home. She was charged with first-degree murder.
Sheila did not murder Marlene Warren.
Greg Rosenfeld, Sheila Keene Warren's defense attorney, says Sheila was not the shooter.
Everything was so methodical. This person walking up to the house, committing this shooting, and then slowly walking away. We're dealing with someone who had experience in committing a hit or a murder.
That's not Sheila.
That is not Sheila.
Shortly after Sheila's arrest, Dave Ehrenberg addressed reporters.
Today, we filed notice of intent to seek the death penalty in this case.
Can you say whether Michael Warren is a suspect?
I can't say that.
Aletha McRoberts says there was something Sheila asked as she was being taken into custody that caught prosecutors' attention.
One of the first things she said is, well, are you going to arrest him too? Pointing to her husband.
Which suggests what to you?
That she knew exactly what she was being arrested for, and they had done it together.
Joe had come to the same conclusion, that his stepfather and Sheila were both involved in his mother's murder. Would you like to see Mike Warren charged in the murder of your mother?
Yes, I would.
With Sheila in custody, we wanted to speak with Mike Warren.
We're going to go to his front door, give it a knock, and see if he'll answer a couple of questions.
After the arrest of Sheila Keene Warren in 2017, 48 Hours wanted to talk to Mike Warren about what he knew about his wife's murder.
Here he comes. Hey, Mike. I'm Peter Van Sant with CBS News.
He wouldn't open the door, but we spoke through it for several minutes, competing with a barking dog.
Did you have anything to do with planning the murder of your wife, Marlene? You did not.
He was adamant that neither he nor Sheila Keene Warren had anything to do with Marlene's murder.
Did you suggest to Sheila that she dress in a clown outfit?
You're saying Sheila. Who says Sheila did that? I don't think she had anything to do with it. If I thought she had something to do with it, I wouldn't have been with it.
Do you believe, based on the evidence over the years, that Mike Warren knew what was going to happen that day?
I don't believe there's any direct evidence of that.
There just wasn't enough evidence to prosecute Michael Warren. But if evidence emerges, we'll pursue it.
As they prepared for trial, despite never recovering the clown disguise or the gun, prosecutors were confident they could prove that Sheila Keene Warren committed the murder so that she could marry Mike Warren.
Sheila Keene Warren had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to do this.
We will never know who killed Marlene Warren because the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and the State Attorney's Office did such a poor job investigating this case. I can tell you without question that it was not Sheila Keene.
Sheila Keene Warren's defense attorney, Greg Rosenfeld, says she's innocent, a victim of the state attorney's reckless desire to close a notorious cold case.
And they said, you know what, this is our suspect. We're going to stick with it, even though the pieces of the puzzle didn't fit the puzzle.
Rosenfeld says there were other potential suspects authorities ignored, including an inmate who supposedly bragged in prison about murdering Marlene. But prosecutors say he was investigated and cleared.
It's not surprising that they would try to point the finger at law enforcement for not looking at every potential suspect. But if you look at the evidence, it pointed to one person all along, Sheila Keene Warren.
The state was confident Sheila Keene Warren was responsible for Marlene's murder, but Rosenfeld plans to poke holes in its case at trial.
How do you overcome DNA evidence?
The state attorney's office should be embarrassed about the DNA evidence in this case.
Rosenfeld agrees the hair prosecutors say was found in the LeBaron getaway car could be from Sheila Keene Warren. But he says it could also be from about 4% of the U.S. Caucasian population.
They couldn't exclude Marlene Warren from that hair sample. So that was their groundbreaking DNA evidence.
And if you concede that the hair is from Sheila Keene Warren, says Rosenfeld, there's an innocent explanation as to how it got there. The LeBaron was on the lot at Bargain Motors where she worked.
Sheila may have been in the car used in this murder. That's it.
The defense attorney says, well, of course her hair might be in there. It doesn't suggest that she was driving at the time of the murder. What do you say to that?
It's just one more link. Once you put that one thing with the totality of all the circumstances, then it starts to become overwhelming.
Rosenfeld says the orange fibers found in the car, which prosecutors say could be from the clown costume, should also be excluded.
So the fibers found in the car were synthetic fibers. That same type of fiber could be used in thousands of different products. So the state likes to present it as clown wig fibers, but that's factually incorrect.
Even more troubling than the evidence gathered, says Rosenfeld, is how it was handled over the decades.
What are we looking at here?
These are evidence bags at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office Evidence Unit, torn open. Just gaping holes in these evidence bags.
If there's gaping holes, what can that do to the evidence inside?
That's precisely how you have cross-contamination. Now look at, if I can zoom in here.
This bag contains a clown wig investigators purchased similar to the one they believed was worn by the assailant. They used it to compare to the fibers found in the LeBaron and in Sheila's home.
This is an open evidence bag with the wig sticking out. This is horrifying.
And so your bottom line is that this evidence is unreliable now.
Without question.
Can it not be argued that some of the evidence in this case was indeed bungled?
You know, you're asking a lot of law enforcement to be perfect from 1990 to today. Some of the evidence was kept in an evidence storage area that wasn't ideal. Any mistake, any small opening will be exploited by defense lawyers.
Prosecutors were still certain they had the right person for Marlene's murder. But in February 2020, after a re-evaluation of Sheila Keene Warren's case, they announced they would no longer seek the death penalty.
Were you told by the prosecutor's office that there was always a chance in a jury trial that she might even be acquitted?
Yes.
When you think of your mom today, what do you think about? What images come to mind?
Well, she was robbed, and so was I.
It is said the wheels of justice turn slowly, and when it came to the murder of Marlene Warren, that grind often seemed to come to a halt. After the 27-year wait for an arrest, Sheila Keene Warren's trial kept getting delayed. By 2022, she had spent 5 years in jail. Her trial postponed 6 times.
And then we had COVID. So it just was one thing after another. Decades of accumulation of files and photographs and mountains of evidence and documents.
Defense attorney Greg Rosenfeld was also trying to work his way through all that evidence. And he says adding to the delays was a lack of cooperation from the state.
Evidence kept, I'd say, disappearing.
Rosenfeld says one crucial piece of evidence for the defense that disappeared for years was what investigators called the clown sighting file.
These were all the tips about people who alleged to have seen clowns in the area.
That opens up for you new avenues as to possible suspects, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the sheriff's office and the state attorney's office just decided they didn't want to look for this evidence.
But then suddenly, in October of 2022, as another trial date neared, the file was found.
It was located not with the Sheila Keene clown murder boxes. It was actually a file out of place.
They find this clown setting file, and there's 35 tips. We begin to investigate them. Now we're 32 years after the murder. You know, we couldn't track down these witnesses.
I've seen it, and it's silly things. Clearly, clown sightings that had nothing to do with Marlene Warren.
And it wasn't being intentionally hidden from the defense?
Absolutely not. We were meticulous about making sure they had everything.
Though as the trial neared, the decades of delays were causing problems for the prosecution as well.
Every day that went by, it was a tougher case. Witnesses die, memories fade, evidence spoils. One of our key witnesses passed away. He was the one who compiled the evidence, and without him, we lost a chain of custody for some crucial evidence relating to the fibers.
If I can zoom in here, this is an open evidence bag.
Evidence the defense already claimed had been poorly stored and mishandled.
Contaminated, inadmissible, unreliable. It just goes to show you how poor of an investigation that was done.
They were going to be able to argue that because of the opening of the bags, that the evidence was spoiled, and because of the break in the chain of custody, because of the death of our witnesses, it shouldn't even be admitted. So you had some real potential for reasonable doubt.
There was beyond reasonable doubt.
On April 25th, 2023, 2 weeks before Sheila Keene Warren's trial for the murder of Marlene Warren was to begin, there was yet another surprise in a case that had been filled with the unexpected. A plea deal was reached.
Ms. Keene Warren, the defendant herein, will agree to withdraw her previously entered plea of not guilty and her plea of guilty.
Sheila Keene Warren, whose case at one time included the death penalty, then life in prison, would now plead guilty to second-degree murder and be sentenced to 12 years in prison. Under sentencing guidelines for time served, she is expected to be released in 2025, perhaps sooner.
We had to make a judgment based on what we had.
Because the fear is what, if you take this to trial?
The worst thing that could happen would be that Sheila Keene Warren would be found not guilty. Not because she was innocent, but because after 33 years, we could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was the one who did it.
But Sheila Keene Warren did have to publicly pay a price for this plea deal, admitting in open court that she, in fact, did murder Marlene Warren.
If this case were to proceed to jury trial, the state would present evidence that on or about May the 26th of 1990, the defendant was responsible for the death of Marlene Warren.
Ms. Keene Warren, did you hear all that?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree with that factual basis?
Yes.
Despite admitting her crime, Sheila Keene Warren, through her attorney, still maintains she is innocent.
Sheila did not commit this murder. It was very difficult for her to admit to committing a crime that she did not commit.
But as a matter of law, she has admitted to committing the murder by saying yes.
Correct, for the purpose of...
So she is a convicted murderer.
Insofar as the law goes, sure. But when you're told you could be home, or, you can play Russian roulette and risk spending the rest of your life in prison, it's kind of a no-brainer.
The defense cannot have it both ways. So she will be a murderer for every day for the rest of her life. Even when she gets out of prison one day, she'll still be a convicted murderer.
When she does get out of prison, she will reunite with her husband, Michael Warren.
Sheila's going home to Tennessee. She's going back to her life.
Michael Warren, in a statement provided to 48 Hours regarding the plea, said, "My wife did not commit this crime. It was difficult to see her plea to a crime she did not commit, but it wasn't worth the gamble when she was offered a deal that'll have her home in 16 to 18 months. With this deal, there is a chance that Sheila might get out of prison within the next year or two. Are you all right with that?
Well, I'm not all right with it, but I have to be.
Still, Joe Aarons approved the plea deal, feeling it wasn't worth the gamble of going to trial.
That was very emotional because that was the end of something so huge that grew for 33 years of my life.
Finally, it's over.
Finally. It was...
The demons that once occupied Joe's mind are gone, replaced with loving memories of how his mother Marlene lived, rather than how that life was so violently taken. What would you say to your mother if you could speak to her today?
Wow, what can I say to my mother? Thank you for showing me how to love and be peaceful, and thank you for being in my life.
Hurts.
48 hours to miss it would be a crime.
Were you at all prepared for what happened in this case?
Fabulous Mo Wilson. You are ready.
I'm ready.
You're
yeah,
ready.
I'm so excited to be here. It feels like the first big race of the year. So, yeah, I'm
It is.
Ready to kick it off.
I'm still getting better. I'm still learning. It's an exciting time. There's still so much for me to learn.
Her name was Moriah, but everybody called her Mo. My name is Pilar Melendez, and I am a senior reporter with the Daily Beast. Funny and friendly and smart and driven, Mo was a rising star. She graduated from Dartmouth in engineering. Everyone thought she was about to make her big break in cycling.
I have always relied on other people to push myself.
What happened to Mo was a tragedy.
They found Mo inside the residence. It was a pretty grisly scene. She had been shot multiple times.
At first, detectives thought it was a robbery.
You're looking into this possibility of a robbery or a burglary, but parallel to that, there is this name, Colin Strickland. Sure.
My name is Colin Strickland. I am a bicycle racer.
Colin Strickland was a top biker, and he was also friends with Mo.
I mean, Colin, he was an interesting character. Had a lot of cool qualities about him. Motorcycles, professional athlete. I mean, Colin had dated a few girls in the cycling scene. Girlfriends here and there, but pretty standard stuff. Colin's relationship with Mo was they were both bike racers. They had a romantic relationship.
There had definitely been something romantic between them. Colin said they had broken up. The situation was complicated. There was another woman in Colin's life. Her name was Caitlin Armstrong.
Caitlin, first impressions, she was really nice, globe hopping around the world, was, really interested in yoga, very attractive person, both inside and out. At least the Caitlin I, initially knew.
Homicide detectives were very interested in talking to Caitlin Armstrong.
He's starting to get this sense that there could be some jealousy to it. She has a gun. A few things like that start to paint a picture of it could definitely be her. We were still trying to figure out, are they gonna have enough information to sit down and scratch out a warrant?
At this point, she kind of disappears. No one knows where she is.
Caitlin Armstrong vanished, seemingly into thin air, sparking what would become an international manhunt, first leading authorities across the United States, and then eventually here to the beaches of Costa Rica. Along the way, she used multiple identities and changed her appearance, even getting plastic surgery.
How smart was Caitlin Armstrong?
She did some pretty intelligent things.
The thing that people don't know is you don't have to be just smarter than 1, 2, 3, or 4 of us, because there's a team of 20 plus people. You have to be smarter than a lot of people to get away with it.
It almost worked.
It almost worked.
Hello! I'm here with the fabulous Mo Wilson. You are ready.
I'm ready.
You're ready.
In March of 2022, up-and-coming pro gravel bike racer, 25-year-old Anna Moriah Wilson, known as Mo to some, appeared on the Pre-Ride Show, an online program about cycling.
So excited to be here. Feels like the first big race of the year, so yeah, I'm ready to kick it off.
Just 2 months later, Moriah was found murdered. The news shocking the cycling community.
I don't think anybody could really believe it at first. You know, why would anybody want to hurt or harm or kill this lovely, talented young woman?
Lisa Goslin-Lynn is the editor of Vermont Sports Magazine and Vermont Ski and Ride Magazine. She's also a CBS News consultant.
Moriah Wilson right there coming in.
Lynn had been following Moriah Wilson's career for many months before her tragic death.
It is all Moriah Wilson as she is snaking through into the finish of the...
Moriah was pretty much winning every race that she entered.
Moriah Wilson, the winner of round one. Of the
winning or finishing in the top two. And the races that she entered were top tier.
First place, Mo Wilson.
Moriah had the potential to be one of the top bike racers, definitely in the country and probably in the world.
Mo, phenomenal race.
Remarkably, Lynn says that Moriah was new to the pro cycling world. Her first passion had been downhill ski racing, a love shared by her close-knit family.
She was born into a family of really great athletes. Her father, Eric, had been on the U.S. ski team, and Moriah's aunt actually was a two-time Olympic Nordic ski racer.
And it's no surprise that Moriah was drawn to outdoor endurance sports. She was raised in northern Vermont next to Kingdom Trails, a mecca for skiers and mountain bikers.
And that was her playground.
Moriah attended Burke Mountain Academy, an elite ski school that produced Olympic greats like two-time gold medalist Michaela Schifrin. Moriah had hoped to make the U.S. ski team, but knee injuries eventually ended her skiing career. That's when she switched sports.
She had used cycling as a way for rehabbing and kind of building back her strength. What was fascinating to me was she then went on to Dartmouth. She got an engineering degree. And after doing that, she went to her mother and said, "Hey, Mom, I think I want to be a professional cyclist."
And Moriah told the podcast We Got to Hang Out that she wanted to do much more than just win races.
How can I inspire people? How can I give back to the cycling community? How can I bring more people into the sport? How can I make it more inclusive? Like, I want to find meaning and purpose in cycling that goes like far beyond the result.
Moriah eventually moved to San Francisco, where she focused on cycling and quickly rose to the top of the sport.
Moriah was forging her own path. She knew what she wanted to do, and she was working hard to pursue it.
On May 10th, 2022, just 1 week before her 26th birthday, Moriah arrived in Austin, Texas to prepare for the Gravel Locos bike race, a race she was favored to win. Moriah stayed with a close friend in this Austin apartment. But the next evening, just before 10 p.m., the friend returned home and discovered Moriah, who had been shot multiple times. She called 911.
She's laying on the bathroom floor and there's blood everywhere.
Moriah's friend tried CPR, but it was too late.
It sounded like started off near the door and went backwards like she was trying to get away or there was some sort of struggle or a change.
Austin police officers Mark McLeod and Jonathan Riley worked the case from the beginning.
Whoever shot her at that point stood over top of her and shot her at least once.
Charlie 507, you're in apartment 13.
Investigators wondered who could have murdered this promising young athlete. As they canvassed the immediate area, police discovered a possible clue.
Report 32, I located the bike.
Moriah's expensive racing bicycle had been discarded in the bushes.
So at that point, okay, is this a burglary, a robbery gone wrong?
But that theory was quickly dismissed because there was no sign of a break-in. Then police learned that just hours before Moriah was found murdered, at around 8:30 p.m., she had been dropped off by another professional bike racer named Colin Strickland.
So obviously the focus would be, who's this Colin Strickland?
Colin Strickland was a very good gravel racer. He was at the top echelon.
Colin Strickland, who was 35, was considered a pioneer in the sport. He had won some of the most prestigious races and was sponsored by the industry's top brands, like Red Bull.
My name is Colin Strickland. I am a bicycle racer and general entertainer.
In 2020, he appeared in an online video called Wahoo Frontiers about his long and successful career.
Pretty early on, I looked up to Colin when I was coming up in the scene.
Please welcome Chris Tolley.
Chris Tolley is friends with Colin Strickland. They met on the racetrack.
He was the one to beat. He loved to kind of create a show around bike racing, kind of selling bike racing. He was really passionate about it.
And Tolley said, although his friend had been popular with women, he eventually became serious with a woman named Caitlin Armstrong. However, in a social media post after the crime, Strickland wrote that about 6 months before Moriah's murder, during a short breakup with Armstrong, he did have a brief romantic relationship with Moriah that spanned a week or so. He said that it ended and their relationship had turned into a platonic and professional one.
He just wanted to be friends with like someone who was going to do great things in cycling.
The day after Moriah's murder, police visited and spoke to Colin Strickland at his home.
My personal take was he was being very cooperative, being very forthcoming. Obviously, he was in shock.
Being very transparent.
Very transparent, yeah.
And investigators say when he agreed to go down to the police station to be interviewed, he didn't seem to hold back when telling them about the day he spent with Moriah, a day that would end up being her last.
That day in May, it was hot in the 80s, and this story started with a swim right here. It's a famous old outdoor pool, and Colin Strickland told detectives he took the victim, Mo Wilson, on the back of his motorcycle here to cool off.
They went swimming, then they got food.
Moriah and Strickland are seen here on the restaurant's security camera.
I know he's being transparent at this point during this questioning, but what he's saying is starting to sound a lot like a date.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Investigators had a lot of questions, and their prior visit to Strickland's home had raised even more. On the night of Moriah's murder, police discovered an important clue on video from a neighbor's security camera. The video was taken just 1 minute after Moriah was dropped off.
There's a video from a Ring doorbell camera that clearly shows like a black SUV with a bike rack. Can't see the license plate because of the bike rack on it.
So it was obviously like, we need to focus on this.
And a vehicle that fit that description was outside Strickland's house. Who was driving the black Jeep SUV with the bike rack? The answer would lead directly to another woman. The day after Moriah Wilson's murder, investigators quickly had an answer to who could have been driving that black Jeep that was seen on security cameras shortly before her death. Investigators had spotted a similar looking Jeep in Colin Strickland's driveway when they spoke to him.
They see a black Jeep with the bike rack on the back of it. So at that point, we run the license plate and it comes back that it's registered to Caitlin Armstrong.
Caitlin Armstrong, Colin Strickland's girlfriend. Chris Tolley says he knew her very well.
You know, we connected pretty early on. Caitlin and I became friends.
They were both from the Midwest.
So we kind of had a similar like upbringing, and so I think that kind of helped us become like even better friends. She'd come over to parties I would have.
Armstrong had a background in finance and loved yoga.
She had a really strong, love for travel. She'd spent time pretty much, globe hopping around the world. Really, kind of interesting person.
Armstrong got certified as a yoga instructor in Bali. After she met Colin Strickland in 2019, she also started getting into cycling.
He was very willing to kind of show her, what his passions were and how passionate he was for cycling and get her involved with it. And she also became, kind of addicted to cycling along with Colin.
Armstrong even started racing on an amateur level.
At the end of the day, I feel like they had a pretty normal relationship. They both ride bikes together. They would, do fun stuff. And, then 2020 happened and the pandemic started. So everyone was kind of, forced with, close quarters with their significant others.
The couple eventually moved in together.
The moment I saw the relationship become more serious is, they talked about that they purchased a house recently together, which I thought, was a pretty big indication that it's a serious relationship.
They also started a business together, restoring classic trailers.
I think she was helping with the finance side of things. Colin was doing a lot of the operations. Their relationship went from, just a normal couple to also owning a business together.
But things got bumpy in late 2021.
The breakup, I personally didn't know, they were split up at the time. Neither of them mentioned anything to me.
It was during this time that Colin Strickland and Moriah Wilson had briefly dated. Although Strickland had said they had broken it off, Moriah seemed confused in the aftermath. Pilar Melendez covered the case for the Daily Beast.
Around this time, I think Mo was pretty confused about the status of her relationship with Colin. And she literally wrote, "This weekend was strange for me. If you just want to be friends, that's cool. Honestly, my mind has been going in circles." It sounds like someone who's in her early 20s who just wants to know the status of her relationship with someone that's confusing her. And it seems totally reasonable that she might be confused.
Strickland had a lot to say about his relationship with Caitlin Armstrong.
He starts to portray her as being the jealous type, even saying things like, I can't keep people in my phone, like Mo's not in my phone as Mo.
Strickland told investigators he kept Moriah's phone number under an alias in his contacts, and on that evening after he'd been out with Moriah at the pool, he texted Armstrong that he'd been running an errand and that his phone had died. That was not true. Investigators say there were other clues pointing toward Caitlin Armstrong.
On the night of the murder, Caitlin Armstrong's phone was not connected to a cell network.
Not connected.
Correct. So whether she powered it off, whether she put it in airplane mode, there's something happened that her phone was not communicating with any cell phone towers.
Do you think this was on purpose?
Absolutely. In this day and age, if your phone is off and not connected to a network, you're either the victim of a crime or you're probably committing one.
A silent phone speaks louder in some cases than actions.
Oh, absolutely.
Strickland also shared that he had bought handguns for Armstrong and himself for personal security.
He talks about how they purchased guns and that there are these 2 guns and that she has a gun. They've taken lessons and that these guns are back at the house. And so a few things like that start to paint a picture of it could definitely be her.
Police worked quickly. That same day, investigators picked Caitlin Armstrong up on an old warrant for failing to pay for a Botox treatment.
She's just kind of sitting there, and she's not showing very much emotion at all.
What were you doing yesterday? I would like to leave, I think.
Typically, when we see some interviews going on, and if you didn't do it, this is you're gonna be like, not me, not it. I want out of this room. What do you want to know so you don't come back looking for me? And there was none of that.
Is there any explanation as far as why the vehicle would be over there? I would like to leave.
She was almost completely disinterested in hearing what the detectives had to say.
So it sounds like this is a big red flag immediately.
Oh,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
But investigators had to let Armstrong go. There was a problem. Armstrong's birth date did not match the date on the warrant, so the warrant wasn't valid, and police didn't have enough to charge her with anything else. 2 days after that interview, police got an unexpected call. It was from a friend of Caitlin Armstrong. Police say the caller told them that Armstrong was so angry about Strickland's relationship with Moriah that she wanted to kill her. It was yet another indication that they were on the right track. A few days later, an arrest warrant was issued, but when police went looking for Caitlin Armstrong, she was gone. After Caitlin Armstrong vanished, U.S. Marshals got the job of tracking her down.
Plain and simply, the Marshals are manhunters.
Chris Godsick hosts and produces a podcast with the U.S. Marshals Service.
I'm Chris Godsick, and this is Chasing Evil.
His podcast tells the stories of some of the U.S. Marshals' biggest cases. including the hunt for Caitlin Armstrong.
Nobody thought Caitlin Armstrong was going to run, and she surprised them all. She disappeared. Caitlin Armstrong ran from a murder charge, but the U.S. Marshals Lone Star Fugitive Task Force had a different plan.
So take me through this. Where do you begin when you're looking for somebody that does not want to be found?
You know, it depends on the case, honestly. We look for friends, sometimes we look for family.
One of the things that I did was collect as many photos as I could.
Damian Fernandez and Amir Perez are deputy U.S. Marshals. They joined Austin police officers Jonathan Riley and Mark McLeod on the case. The team, based in Texas, is known as the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force. With no sign of Caitlin Armstrong, the task force suspected Armstrong may have left town, headed for her sister Christy's place in upstate New York.
We were thinking maybe she's driving cross country. We didn't know.
Their instincts were right. In upstate New York, another deputy marshal managed to track down Armstrong's sister.
What did the sister say?
The sister ultimately said that her sister had come to visit her, had stayed with her a couple of days, but that she had dropped her off at the airport in Newark. And last she heard, she was going to board a flight back to Austin, but then called her back later and said that she decided that she was going to drive back.
Which made absolutely no sense to any of us, that you would just drive back.
When the task force checked outbound flights at Newark Airport, no reservations had been made in Caitlin Armstrong's name.
We never got a hit on Caitlin Armstrong's passport.
But the team had a hunch, because Christy told the deputy marshal in New York that she didn't know where her passport was. So they checked with their contact at Homeland Security.
And within minutes of reaching out to him, he got back to me and he's like, yeah, we're showing Christy Armstrong traveled out of Newark, New Jersey International Airport on a one-way flight to Costa Rica.
You knew it.
And I said, there's no way that the sister left and we're looking for her. We can't find Caitlin. No, that's Caitlin.
The marshals suspected that Caitlin Armstrong had used her sister's passport to flee. Christy Armstrong later emphasized to authorities she did not give her sister the passport. She has never been charged with any crime related to this case. And this is where Caitlin Armstrong landed, Costa Rica, gem of Central America. Home to mountains, tropical rainforests, and white sand beaches, as far as the eye can see. But she didn't spend much time here in San Jose. Shortly after arriving, Caitlin Armstrong disappeared again, and she had a huge lead on the U.S. Marshals. Marshals Amir Perez and Damian Fernandez arrived in Costa Rica a month after Armstrong.
This is you guys now on the hunt. How intense is it once you touch down in Costa Rica? What happens?
You're on a timeline.
I hear timeline and I hear the pressure's on.
Pressure's on.
Absolutely.
I know we were sitting in the plane and we were talking, what's the game plan?
Although they would have help from the Costa Rican authorities and U.S. State Department officers on the ground, they knew finding Armstrong was going to be a big challenge.
We had other intelligence indicating that she was staying in hostels in Costa Rica. And I don't know if you know anything about Costa Rica, but Costa Rica has a lot of hostels. A lot. An unbelievable amount of hostels.
The Marshals wouldn't tell us exactly how their intelligence gathering worked, but their team back in the States had managed to track down the phone number for an American businessman they believed had connected with Caitlin Armstrong at some point.
We didn't know what city he was in, so we decided, hey, let's just cold call him. So we call him, and we're on the conference room, and he answers, and we're like, hey, it's the U.S. Marshals. My name's Mark, and he goes, I don't want any click. Just hangs up like it's a
telemarketer.
Yeah, telemarketer.
Or a scam call.
Yeah.
After 3 or 4 call attempts, the businessman finally stayed on the line to answer the Marshals' questions.
And we actually end up sending a picture of Caitlin while we're on the phone with him. He looks at it and he goes, yes, but she doesn't look like that and she's not using that name.
And did he tell you her new name?
He did.
It was Beth.
Beth.
This is Beth.
Going by Beth.
And the businessman said Armstrong no longer looked like this. She had cut her hair and changed its color.
He went to
It was
brown hair
instead of red.
Yeah,
brown
she
hair.
dyed her hair.
The businessman told the marshals he had no idea that the woman who called herself Beth was actually Caitlin Armstrong, but he did tell them where they might find her.
He's like, well, I met her at a yoga studio in Hako.
This is Hako, a popular tourist destination known for its nightlife and its beaches, and the perfect place to hide. It was the marshals' first real tip, so they rushed out here. They canvassed the area, combed through hours of surveillance video, but could not find a single sign of Caitlin Armstrong anywhere. It was a bust.
But the marshals have one more solid lead, and that takes them to a beautiful, touristy beach town, a one-street town called Santa Teresa.
One month after Caitlin Armstrong disappeared, the U.S. Marshals were in hot pursuit of her. In another area of Costa Rica, a source had suggested she might have gone to a small village on the Pacific coast.
The marshals took a ferry like this one to reach a remote peninsula. Once there, they drove by car through those mountains to the tiny town of Santa Teresa. But when they finally arrived, they ran into an unexpected problem.
Get to Santa Teresa. Was it easy to identify her there from the other people that were there?
I think from the get-go we were told, you're gonna be in for a surprise, because a lot of the women in Santa Teresa look just like Caitlin. A lot of them.
And it turns out that advice was right. The town was full of foreign tourists. Deputy Marshals Fernandez and Perez arrived in Santa Teresa after dark.
So we get there, and he starts walking down a main strip that's there, like down the street.
There's only one road
And
on that town.
And he sees
main road.
He sees a girl, and he says, you know, that looks just like her. Well, a couple of minutes later, we see another one, and it's late at night, and we're like, well, oh man, that's two. And then there's another one.
As the marshals tried to find Armstrong, they even had one of their female operatives start going to yoga classes to see if they could spot her.
She actually did 3 different classes for us.
And they tapped into local contacts.
Oh yeah, we made friends with people there that would send us pictures. Oh look, I think I saw her at this restaurant yesterday, and she's in the background of a photo that I took. Stuff like that.
In fact, people had seen Caitlin Armstrong at local spots in Santa Teresa, but they didn't realize who she was. Armstrong was hiding in plain sight, using different names.
She had like multiple names.
Yeah, she came in.
Beth?
It wasn't Beth.
Ari.
Ari, right. So she came in as Ari.
Greg Haber is an American from the New York area who owns a restaurant called Cook's Smokehouse and Bar here in Santa Teresa.
Ari. What did Ari look like? Did she stand out to you?
Pretty. Came in, introduced herself as a yoga teacher, which is basically anybody else down here. Hey, I moved here, teaching yoga down the street, and that was it.
What was her general vibe like?
She definitely seemed like she was trying to establish roots here, like this was gonna be her new home.
And Haber says one day he noticed something different about her.
I saw her on the beach. I walk my dog on the beach every night for sunset, and you're walking through, and you see the bandage on her face. It's like, oh, what happened? She's like, oh, surfboard hit me in the face. It's like, well, happens to everybody, right? At least once. So you wouldn't even question that story here. Like, you see people all the time.
Turns out that bandage would later prove to be an important part of this story, and one of the reasons the marshals say Armstrong was so hard to find.
So you're this close to giving up?
Yes.
Yeah, we go back.
Finally, they decided on one last tactic. They turned to a local Facebook page.
We decided we were going to put an ad out for a yoga instructor and see what would happen.
So this is the equivalent of Craigslist.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Pretty much.
And
A little bit more lively, but yes. And just saying, hey, we're this hostel. We're looking for a yoga instructor the soonest possible. Please contact us at this number.
But after almost a week of hunting, even that didn't seem to be working.
Sunday, we decided we haven't gotten any response back from
Nothing.
anything.
We're burned.
So Sunday, like, okay, we're done. None of them have panned out. So
we're going back to San Jose.
Now back in San Jose, the marshals were getting ready to head home when suddenly
We got a bite. Somebody that identified herself as a yoga instructor and said that wanted to meet with us at a particular hostel, and we said this is our chance.
Deputy Marshals Perez and Fernandez rushed back to Santa Teresa just ahead of a tropical storm.
Carlos Solano, soy teniente de la Policía Turística.
Tourism Police Lieutenant Juan Carlos Solanos' team helped the marshals in their search for Caitlin Armstrong. They did surveillance on a hostel called Don John's, where the yoga instructor, the one who answered the online ad, was believed to be.
So there is this massive international manhunt, and of all places in the world, it ends in this very discreet hostel.
Sí, aquí se ubicó, ella estaba hospedada acá, en este lugar acá.
It was now time for the marshals to make their move.
So I walked up and I got in.
They decided that Deputy Marshal Perez would approach the woman alone. They didn't want to scare her off. He would pretend to be a tourist and try to get a really good look at her face.
And I saw two individuals sitting there at a table off to the left as soon as I walked in.
He says one was a woman.
She looked like Caitlin, but not 100%. So I thought, well, how can I approach her or get close enough where I start asking questions where she doesn't suspect something? So I decided that I was gonna speak to her in Spanish. So I spoke to her in nothing but Spanish.
So you're communicating, she goes to use her phone for Google Translate, and then...
So I got a little closer because I saw that she was trying to get to Google Translate on her phone, and she'd raise it up to me, and I got even closer. And I noticed that she had a bandage on her nose, and possibly her lips were swollen. And I saw her eyes. The eyes are the exact same ones that I saw in the picture. And this is her 100%.
he gets in the car and he's like, that's her. She's in there.
Local police moved in to make the actual arrest. And soon, the marshals discovered why Armstrong had been so hard to find. She had been getting plastic surgery when they first arrived in Santa Teresa. At the hostel, they found a receipt.
The receipt for surgery.
Plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery.
In these side-by-side photos, you can see that Armstrong changed the shape of her nose. The deputy marshal said their female operative, the woman they sent to yoga classes to try to find Armstrong, told them Armstrong's new look would have tricked her.
And she told me, I think if I would have run into her at the yoga studio, I don't think I would have recognized her.
Wow. It almost worked.
It almost worked.
The marshals took Armstrong back to Texas, where she was charged and held in jail. But just weeks before she was due to stand trial for the murder of Moriah Wilson, Caitlin Armstrong escaped again. Almost 3 weeks before her trial, former fugitive Caitlin Armstrong somehow managed to escape from custody.
She was at a doctor's appointment and tried to escape as they were walking out.
Pilar Melendez from the Daily Beast says Armstrong didn't get far before deputies caught her.
It was pretty astonishing that she did that, given the fact that she had tried to escape prosecution prior.
This was just more evidence of her guilt.
Jose Garza is Travis County's district attorney. He says his team of prosecutors, Ricky Jones and Guillermo Gonzalez, were more than ready to try the case.
When we learned that she had tried to escape, It just added to our confidence level in the facts of this case that we would be able to secure justice for Moriah and her family.
On November 1st, 2023, Armstrong's trial began.
The last thing Mo did on this earth was scream in terror.
In opening statements, Jones told the jury about chilling audio from a security camera that captured the last moments of Moriah's life.
Those screams are followed by ah, ah, 2 gunshots. Caitlin Armstrong stood over Mo Wilson and put a 3rd shot right in Mo Wilson's heart.
Prosecutors said Armstrong had been tracking Moriah Wilson using a sports app.
Caitlin, prior to the murder, had been following Mo on a Strava app, which is basically an app that athletes use to track their miles, running, biking, and she knew exactly where she was.
And they said that Armstrong, on the night of the murder, was most likely tracking Colin Strickland as well.
She did have the ability to monitor his communications. She had access to all of his passwords, so she had access to his Instagram account.
I believe that when Mo sent Colin a text letting him know the address where she was, I believe that Caitlin Armstrong was at home on Colin Strickland's laptop. She saw that message.
After murdering Moriah and before leaving the scene, Jones told the jury that Armstrong took Moriah's bike and discarded it in the bushes, just yards away from where her Jeep was parked.
Our belief is that she maybe staged it to look like a robbery or something. Or another theory is Mo Wilson's bike is a tool of her trade. It might have been like the bullet shot in the heart. I'm gonna shoot you in the heart. I'm gonna throw away your bike.
But they said Armstrong made one big mistake. She left her DNA behind on the handlebars and seat of Moriah's bike. And that's not all the evidence prosecutors had against Armstrong. There was that receipt that showed Armstrong had received plastic surgery while hiding out in Costa Rica.
Everything she does, it's all consistent with trying to evade the authorities.
But when it was the defense's turn, attorney Jeffrey Purrier told the jury there was no direct evidence, including security footage, that actually showed Armstrong was at the scene of the crime.
Not one witness saw Caitlin Armstrong allegedly commit this murder.
Then why would Armstrong flee and hide from the authorities? Defense attorney Rick Kofer pointed the finger at Colin Strickland.
Was she scared? What do you think? Do you think that she may have been concerned a little bit that her boyfriend had killed someone? Fear results in fight or flight. And it was flight.
But Jones said there was a big problem with this theory because Strickland had nothing to do with the murder of Moriah Wilson.
In fact, at the time of the murder, he was actually on the phone speaking with someone. It wasn't Colin Strickland.
Armstrong's defense team did not respond to our request for an interview. After a 2-week trial,
the defendant will please rise.
It took the jury around 2 hours to decide Armstrong's fate.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Caitlin Armstrong, guilty of the offense of murder.
As a prosecutor, the first row right behind you is the family. And you begin to feel their pain and their desire for a just outcome for their loved ones.
One day after her conviction, Armstrong was sentenced to 90 years behind bars.
You may be seated.
But before the case came to an end, Judge Brenda Kennedy allowed Caitlin Cash, Moriah's close friend whose apartment she'd been staying at and who had found Moriah's body, to take the stand and speak directly to Armstrong.
So many people in this room have lost so much. I'm angry at you, at the utter tragic nature, at the senselessness, at not being able to hear Mo's voice again. I feel deep sadness for the road ahead.
Then it was Moriah's mother's turn.
I hate what you did to my beautiful daughter. It was very selfish and cowardly. That violent act on May 11th. It was cowardly because you never chose to face her woman to woman in a civil conversation. She would have listened. She was an amazing listener. She would have cared about your feelings.
But despite the pain, Karen Wilson closed with words of love and optimism because she said that's how Moriah would have wanted it.
You killed her earthly body, but her spirit is so very much alive, and you can never change that.
Today, in Kingdom Trails in northern Vermont, a place that was sacred to Moriah, a trail was built in her honor. It's called Moriah's Ascent.
Moriah was a Vermonter. She was giving, she was hardworking, she was honest, she was caring. And she came from a wonderful family, and that family really wants that legacy and all of her good qualities to inspire others.
48 hours. Don't miss an episode.
Did you have anything to do with the death of your wife, Corey?
I did not.
2 minutes.
I'm with the CBS affiliate in Quincy, so we've been covering this from day one.
I was a journalist in Quincy for 25 years, and I'm now writing a book on the case.
Saves the touchdown.
Curtis Lovelace was a center on the Quincy High football team.
The offensive line, Kurt Lovelace.
Went to the University of Illinois. He became an All-Big Ten center.
Well, we're just underway.
I think we all understand the concept of the play more than the past.
He was hired in the Adams County State's Attorney's Office as an assistant state's attorney.
She was a beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman, thin, perfect face. Essentially what it was, it's you have like the star football player dating the cheerleader. That's what Corey and Curtis were.
And then they get married and they have these kids.
Everybody thinking he had it all.
Do you have good memories of any of the time together?
I do. There were good times and bad. I mean, it wasn't a perfect marriage.
On Valentine's Day 2006, Curtis Lovelace found his wife Corey dead in the bedroom of their home on Kentucky Street in Quincy.
What was your reaction?
Just utter shock, just not knowing what to do.
At what point does it change from being this blissful, storybook relationship to death on Valentine's Day?
I think the volatility, sort of built over time. It did escalate to a point where there was a lot of gossip in the community about him. The case was quickly closed. There was no determination for a cause of death, and Curtis went on with his life.
That's when the Quincy gossip mill got started going. People wanted to know what happened to her.
I was sitting in my newsroom and got the call, and they said, sounds like Curtis Lovelace has been arrested.
Curtis Lovelace was arrested this afternoon.
Lovelace is accused of suffocating his former wife, Corey Lovelace, in 2000.
We begin tonight with the start of the Curtis Lovelace murder trial.
To not only be called a murderer, but to say that I murdered the mother of my children, it's horrible. This is a prosecution that should have never been brought. There never should have been an indictment.
Breaking news here inside the Adams County Courthouse. Judge Hardwick did just now declare a mistrial.
It's set for retrial, and we plan to retry it.
Here we are again, the beginning of another Loveless trial, the retrial. We're a year after the first one.
Defendant's first wife, Tori Lovelace, was suffocated. That will be our medical evidence. You know, in the age of supposed fake news, this is a fake case and there are fake witnesses. No evidence of any homicide.
Jenny, what do you see as the big difference this time around?
Lovelace's second wife, Erica Gomez, as we know, she was banned from this first trial. She's the biggest difference in this case. A lot of people saying that she was the missing puzzle piece to why we're even here to begin with.
Come up here and be sworn.
May 2012 is the first time that he attacked me. He ripped my shirt and he tried to grab me again, and I kept on trying to fight him off. The children were called down to stop me from calling the police.
They were lies. I told him multiple times that I had nothing to do with Corey's death.
So how do you find yourself in this position?
It's a good question, and it's a question that we've been asking for the last 2.5 years.
The way I describe circumstantial evidence is as follows. I like to look at it as pebbles in a mosaic. And you're going to step away from that mosaic. And you know what it's going to say? Murder. The opening statements are about what the evidence is going to show. The state had an opportunity to explain to you what evidence they have that Kurt Lovelace murdered his wife, Corey Lovelace, and they didn't present it because there is none.
For Curtis Lovelace and his family, February 14th, 2006 might seem like a long time ago, but for the second time in 2 years, the husband and children of Corey Lovelace are about to relive those difficult days after she died with yet another murder trial. This time it's in a different courthouse, in a different city. But first, you need to know how this all started. It's Friday night in Quincy, Illinois. And hundreds have come out for the home team. Local journalist Bob Goff swaps his keyboard for a microphone and moonlights as an announcer.
Your halftime score, Quincy 28.
If you're a local sports star, people are always wanting to know about you.
And at Quincy High in the 80s, there was no bigger star than Blue Devils Hall of Famer Curtis Lovelace, both on the field and in the classroom.
Curtis Lovelace was a very hardworking kid, smart kid.
The University of Illinois gave Lovelace, number 54, a scholarship to play football. But he wasn't just any player. Lovelace, a business administration major, was considered one of the top offensive linemen in the Big Ten, a team captain who led the Fighting Illini to the conference championship his senior year.
He even got a look in free agent camp in the NFL with the Patriots. Had a bad knee injury, which not sure if he would have made it or not, but that certainly didn't help the situation. But being a smart kid, you know, Curtis Lovelace already had other goals in mind.
While still in college, Curtis started a long-distance relationship with high school classmate Corey Diedrichson, who was studying communications at the University of Iowa.
She just had a perfect smile.
Marty Diedrichson, Corey's mother, spoke to our CBS affiliate, KHQA.
And she just smiled at everybody, and she just did stuff.
Corey was vibrant, dynamic, a little bit of stubbornness, and she was a pistol, and I loved her for that.
Steve Belko, Beth Dobrisky, and Brett Schrader grew up with Corey and Curtis in Quincy.
Kurt was easygoing. He was a gentleman, fun-loving, intelligent, a gentleman.
Did you think they were well matched?
I did. They looked great together. They had a lot of similarities, and they seemed to have fun together.
In 1991, just 1 year after graduation, they were married. Steve was Kurt's best man, and Beth was Corey's bridesmaid.
It was one of the best days, in our lives.
They were very happy. The pictures you could see on their faces. It was a magical night.
With Corey by his side, Loveless had grand plans. He attended law school and eventually became an assistant state's attorney in the city they both loved, Quincy.
What did Corey want to do with her life? What were her dreams?
Corey was all about family. She wanted the big family, the happy marriage, being involved in Quincy.
Corey's dream came true in 1993 when their first child, Lindsay, was born.
What are you doing, Lindsay? That's an ugly dog you got there.
And continued with the addition of 3 sons. Logan.
Logan, say something.
He's so screaming.
Lincoln.
Hey, Lincoln, smile.
And Larson. Lindsay is now in her 20s.
She was a loving person. She was involved, headroom mother, PTA, always there at our games, dance recitals, everything. Our #1 cheerleader.
Do you have a fondest memory of her?
I always say dancing to ABBA in the kitchen. She always played ABBA and we always sang along and twirling around, and it was just special, and I still listen because it's everything to me.
And Curtis continued to chase his dreams as well. In 2005, while still at the state's attorney's office, he started his own law firm. And as if he wasn't busy enough, Loveless was elected president of the school board, became a captain in the Illinois National Guard, and an adjunct professor at Quincy University.
Big man on campus, and he always kind of had that air about him.
Was he arrogant?
He became arrogant more and more. Yes, there was a little bit of holier than thou. Maybe you were entitled to this living. I think he lost friends over time because of that.
And the situation at home was changing as well. Curtis's working long hours away from Corey and the kids was taking a toll on their personal life.
They fought. At a young age, I thought it was normal. But then growing up later on after she was gone, I realized that it wasn't normal.
Neighbors around the Loveless house here on Kentucky Street say that in the months leading up to her death, they had heard loud and contentious arguments between Corey and Curtis. By many accounts, both were heavy drinkers. And in this small community, it was known that at times there was a tremendous amount of turmoil in their home.
I knew that she wasn't taking care of herself.
Corey's family acknowledges she was suffering with an eating disorder, bulimia.
I was aware of the bulimia, binging and the purging late in the day. Corey was an alcoholic, and unfortunately, so much of alcoholism, all of alcoholism, is not pretty. It's ugly, and it brings out oftentimes the worst in people. And it was something that she struggled with.
You said you drank. Would you describe yourself as an alcoholic?
I do describe myself as an alcoholic, and I stopped drinking.
Was Corey's death the result of her alcohol abuse, or was it murder? It was a question that would go unanswered for almost 8 years, until a rookie detective would take a new look at this old case.
That's when I went to the chief and asked him if I could take a look at it again.
And when you saw the pictures, what was your first reaction?
It did not appear to me that that could have been a natural death. was at the office just reading old case files, and the Loveless case popped into my head.
In 2014, Adam Gibson, as a newly promoted detective, decided to take a look at a file of a case he'd always been curious about: the death of Corey Loveless 8 years earlier, a death ruled as undetermined.
After seeing the photos, that's when I went to the chief and asked him if I could take a look at it again.
The photos of Corey's body show her arms slightly elevated above her chest.
It didn't really make sense, and there was no real explanation for him.
In reopening the case, Gibson first consulted Adams County Coroner James Keller, who was the deputy coroner in 2006, when he was called to the Loveless house the morning of February 14th.
Upon entering the bedroom, I noticed the female lying on the bed on her back with her hands kind of in an upright position. A body always tells a story the way you find them.
What is the story that Corey's body was telling you?
That she had passed earlier that prior evening or day.
Gibson contacted Dr. Jane Turner, an assistant medical examiner in St. Louis, who agreed with Keller's assessment that Corey's body had stiffened, a condition called rigor mortis, which only happens over an extended period of time.
In my report, I stated 10 to 12 hours. Rigor mortis develops maximally at 12 hours.
And it was the position of Corey's arms that led Dr. Turner to the theory that Corey had been suffocated.
What did you determine would have caused the suffocation?
Well, with the position of the hands, it suggests that there was an object between her hands and her body. And it appears that there's a pillow missing. So I suppose that a pillow was used to suffocate her.
Turner theorized that the pillow had not been removed until much later,
her hands,
after Corey's arms had frozen around it, that her dead body had laid in bed all night. Gibson and Turner's theory of murder was a very different account than the one Curtis Loveless gave police. Curtis says it all started the weekend before Valentine's Day.
She had become ill. She appeared to have the flu.
Curtis insists Corey was very much alive that morning.
The vivid memory is her coming down. One of the kids needed a pair of pants. She wasn't feeling any better, and we made the decision that I would take the kids to school.
4-year-old Larson stayed home while Curtis dropped off the other kids. Larson would later tell police that on that morning, he couldn't wake Mommy up. Frightened, he waited at the top of the stairs for his dad. By 9 a.m., Curtis returned, and that's when he found Corey dead in their bed.
What was your reaction?
Just utter shock. In fact, I'm not even sure how I reacted. I know what I did.
Oddly, Curtis did not react by calling 911.
What I saw was someone who didn't need help. I just saw my wife who had passed away.
Loveless says at that moment, his main concern was to get his youngest child, Larson, out of the house. At trial, Corey's mother, Marty, testifies that Curtis brought him over to her house, which was just around the corner.
Sometime after 9, Curtis knocks on the door, and he asked if I would watch Larson. So I take Larson, and he turns and he said, "Oh, and by the way, Corey's dead."
Then what did Mr. Loveless do?
He turned to leave. And I'm trying to think, I think I remember the fact that on the way I said, "I want to go," and he said, "Everything's been taken care of," and he left.
Did he stay there and
No.
explain to you
No.
what he knew?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Did you have anything to do with the death of your wife, Corey?
I did not.
But Detective Gibson wasn't buying it. His investigation would lead to an indictment,
Curtis Loveless was arrested
an
this
arrest,
afternoon in connection
and Curtis Loveless's first trial, 10 years after his wife's death.
Following breaking news outside of the Adams County Courthouse where a mistrial has been declared,
The jury deadlocked, unable to decide if Corey was murdered.
How does it feel to be released finally?
Curtis Lovelace was out of jail, but for how long? 1 year later, a new trial.
Very dramatic day today here in the Sangamon County
A new jury, but the same question. Did Corey die from alcohol abuse or something more sinister?
Please rise. See you, folks.
The second trial would be the culmination of events that began 11 years ago that Valentine's Day morning.
She was laying in the bed and her arms were drawn up by her chest.
The grim details of that morning would be embedded in the minds of those who were there. EMT Cole Miller was among the first on the scene.
I went in there to check for signs of life and checked her carotid pulse in her neck and then checked her wrist and saw that it was cold and stiff.
I'm Jeff Baird.
Baird was the lead detective in the case in 2006.
You determined that this investigation should be closed because there was no evidence of fault.
That is what we determined.
Defense attorney John Lovey asks him to describe the scene.
Did you find anything whatsoever that seemed consistent with any kind of struggle?
No.
Did you find any evidence of a homicide?
No.
No signs of homicide because the cause of death was ruled undetermined.
Were you surprised she came back with undetermined?
I think it was unexpected. I was expecting to see a death from natural causes related to a health condition.
Baird also didn't expect to see, on the day he discovered Corey, the condition of her hands and arms.
Her arms were up in an unnatural position. Her hands and arms, from the elbow to the hands, were leaning or resting against her abdomen and appeared to be up.
It is this strange position of Corey's arms that would become a critical and controversial piece of this case.
There was mild rigor in one of her arms and moderate rigor in the other. Rigor was also forming in her legs.
Let's be real clear. Were her arms still pliable at 10:50?
Yes.
Tell the jury what pliable means.
We could move them.
The defense argues if Corey's arms were pliable, it would indicate she could have died that morning. And that is in direct contrast to James Keller's testimony.
The body was in a full state of rigor mortis.
However long Corey Lovelace had been dead, to Keller, it certainly appeared that medical rigor mortis had set in.
The state of rigor mortis, to get in that position, generally the rule of thumb of anywhere from 8 to 12 hours.
Did it make any sense to you that they were saying it was that morning?
It did not. It just didn't seem to add up.
2 days after Corey's death, her body was cremated, and the case was closed. A 38-year-old woman was suddenly dead for seemingly no apparent reason.
We assumed that her eating disorder, that her alcoholism somehow caused her death, and whether it was checked undetermined or natural death really wasn't something that we were concerned about.
Life went on. 6 months later, Lovelace started dating Erica Gomez, who he later married. Gomez would become an explosive figure in his second trial.
His parents knew that he was abusive. That's why they came and got him. His parents probably knew that he killed his first wife.
After his wife Corey mysteriously passed away in 2006, it took Curtis Lovelace less than 6 months to find love again, this time with one of his students at Quincy University, Erica Gomez.
I remember my dad coming up to me and saying, "Hey, just so you know, I've been seeing this woman."
And what was your reaction?
I was shocked, but couldn't process it at the same time, because what 12-year-old's gonna process a parent dating, especially so quickly after the loss?
And looking back, it was I think properly characterized as a rebound relationship. I regret starting the relationship.
Were you lonely?
Absolutely.
2 years later, Loveless and Gomez were married.
What was your relationship like with Erica?
Not good at all. For some reason, there was some hatred towards my mom, like she was public enemy #1. So I would tell her to stop, like it's not fair. And then I would get punished for that.
By whom?
By Erica. And what scared me more was that my dad would sit there and watch it.
It didn't take long for things to go from bad to much worse.
It was Christmas Eve, and my mom's side of the family invited all of us to come for family dinner. Christmas was my mom's favorite holiday. And I was crying because I missed her and I wanted her there. And all of a sudden, Erica walks in and says, "We're leaving now." So I get 3 to 5 minutes to calm down, get ready, go to walk out the door, find out that my dad, Erica, the boys had left. My family was not happy with them leaving me, and that set off a bomb.
A bomb that blew her family apart.
It blew up to the point where when I returned home that evening, Ms. Gomez was throwing Lindsay's stuff out of the house.
My clothes are in the street. My room is completely trashed. I knew my life was never going to be normal ever again.
And that's when you moved in with your mom's mom?
Yeah.
Loveless and Gomez divorced in 2013.
I decided that I'd made a poor decision and tried to end that relationship as peacefully and as amicably as possible. Unfortunately, it just didn't end as peacefully and amicably as it should have.
On the stand in front of the jury, Erica gave the courtroom a sample of her explosive personality.
He threatened me, he controlled me. He is physically abusive to me.
Hurling a variety of accusations against Loveless.
I've watched him get rid of evidence. I've watched him use his children to get rid of evidence. He used my social security number to try and steal money out of my account. He sexually assaulted me.
Did you have any concern that they would buy into what she was saying?
I didn't have that concern because I knew they were lies.
He was poisoning me. My hair was falling out. There were white lines on my fingers. I was extremely sick. I had to.
You were aware, Ms. Gomez, that you were not supposed to mention that because there was no evidence to support it.
While Gomez was a witness for the prosecution, ultimately her testimony may have done more for the defense.
I had a hard time believing that the prosecution actually wanted to put her on the stand.
Also in the courtroom, Curtis Loveless's third wife, Christine, who, like Corey, Curtis knew from Quincy High. They were married in 2013, just months after his divorce from Gomez.
The behavior was so outlandish. The accusations were so outlandish. The fake tears.
The children were called down to stop me from calling the police.
So you felt that the jury would have zero credibility with it?
Absolutely.
On the stand for the prosecution, Detective Adam Gibson would have to defend his credibility and explain just how he found an expert to support his belief that Corey was murdered.
It's been implied that you did some doctor shopping.
Yes.
Do you think that's what you did?
Absolutely not.
Remember, Dr. Jane Turner sided with Detective Gibson. After studying the evidence, Turner believed that Corey had died the night before police arrived.
Given the circumstances of the state in which her body was found and the altered scene, that it appears that she did die of a homicide from suffocation.
A logical conclusion, except for the fact that when questioned by Quincy police, the Loveless children, except Larson, said they saw their mother alive on the stairs before going off to school the morning Gibson believed Corey was already dead.
When Adam Gibson came to speak to you and he asked you, do you remember? You told him that you did. You remembered seeing her that morning.
And you came to believe that the children were wrong, correct?
I didn't say they were wrong. I don't know what they saw.
And maybe neither did they.
I had a story in my head of I saw her sitting on the stairs, waving to us, goodbye, I love you, left. And I always said, oh, it was great, I got to say I love you.
Do you remember seeing your mother that Valentine's Day morning?
It's a black hole.
You don't know?
No.
How certain are you now that Curtis Lovelace murdered his wife, Corey?
I'm 100% certain.
But defense attorney John Lovey was about to challenge everything Detective Adam Gibson believed about the death of Corey Lovelace.
Adam Gibson decided to create a crime where one didn't exist.
You knew that the case had been closed because nobody found sufficient evidence of homicide, correct?
I read that it was closed, yes.
Prosecutor Ed Parkinson brings in 3 forensic pathologists to prove Detective Gibson's theory that Corey was murdered. From world-renowned doctor Werner Spitz
Miss Lovelace died, in my view, of suffocation.
to Dr. Scott Denton, the pathologist first consulted when the case was reopened.
I would determine her cause of death to be suffocation.
And finally, to Dr. Jane Turner, the out-of-state expert who also believes Corey was suffocated. Defense attorney Lovey tries to discredit Turner, saying she never saw Corey's body. And her opinion that Corey's body was in full rigor mortis conflicts with the first responders on the scene.
For you to be right, Jeff Baird has to be wrong about his assessment, correct? That's correct, right?
Yes.
Right. For you to be right, paramedic Ballard has to be wrong about his assessment that the arms were still pliable, correct?
Yes.
If Corey Lovelace's body was pliable, as the defense claims, full rigor mortis had not set in, and she did not die the night before.
Whenever you're ready. Prosecution.
When Coroner Keller is cross-examined, Lovey belittles his role in the case.
You were at the scene of Corey's death for all of 5 minutes, correct, sir?
Probably, yes, sir.
Lovey comes down hardest on Detective Gibson.
You continued to pursue Mr. Lovelace, because you had already decided that this man must be guilty.
No.
He grills Gibson about rigor mortis.
At what point did you learn that you were wrong, that the body was in full rigor at the scene?
I don't know to this day that I'm wrong.
I'm going to show you a copy.
Then a new twist. Lovey accuses Gibson of withholding evidence, emails that never made it into the first trial.
You did delete all your emails in January 2015, did you not?
Yes.
The defense was able to recover those emails. Lovey reads one email from a pathologist who told Gibson he could never make a good murder case since Corey's death had originally been ruled undetermined.
That is more than reasonable doubt in any reasonable person's mind. All right, this email should have been turned over, right?
I believe so. It should, yes.
You didn't turn it over, did you?
I did not.
But Gibson testified that he never engaged in any intentional wrongdoing.
Have you ever intentionally deleted or modified emails to manipulate an investigation?
No.
All right, this time we call Dr. William Oliver.
Lovey calls to the stand his own noted pathologist, Dr. William Oliver, who was on the O.J. Simpson case. Oliver had no doubt how Corey died.
It is my opinion that she died of the complication of alcohol withdrawal known as acute fatty liver.
After a battle of the experts,
Your Honor, at this time, the defense calls it Ben.
the defense gambles that the most believable witness might be the accused killer himself.
As I approached the bed, I could see her hands. I could see her eyes were open, and she was very pale, and there was nothing there. Corey was dead. That's what I saw. That's what I saw. I told him multiple times that I had nothing to do with Corey's death.
Of course, being accused of a cold-blooded murder of your wife, that reduces your liability factor, correct?
A little bit.
Do you feel like everything you said, every decision you made, is now being picked over and twisted unfairly, you say?
We've been doing this for 2.5 years.
And it was remembering the time right after Corey died that Curtis became most emotional.
One of our high school classmates, who was a pastor, he's the one that delivered the eulogy. I wrote it, but I couldn't deliver it.
All three Loveless boys continue to support their father. The two oldest testified they saw their mother that Valentine's morning.
I remember getting ready for school, walking back and forth, getting stuff done, sitting on the stairs with my mother, and heading out the door.
How confident are you, though, from your memory itself, that you saw your mother alive that morning?
100%.
Was this the last time you ever saw your mother alive?
Yes.
Their sister Lindsay was not called to testify by either side. As the trial goes to final arguments,
Beyond a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen, is the standard. Those words don't have a dictionary definition. You're all going to have to apply to your life experiences. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Doesn't mean probably, doesn't mean maybe. Beyond a reasonable doubt.
What's that mean? Well, because really what the case is about is that lady, Corey. That's who the case is about. She died at age 38 because a 6'4" former football player standing over her, muffled her, and forgot to take the pillow away.
the question is whether any jury can sort out what exactly happened that Valentine's Day morning.
Do you think we'll ever know what happened with your mom?
No. If a verdict comes out this round, it comes out, I don't think we'll ever fully know.
All murder trials have their clashes between the prosecution and defense.
I would like to know who's coming like you bastards.
Act like you're winning. Pretend like you're doing okay.
But the spats between Ed Parkinson and John Lovey
Morning.
were more contentious.
I've objected to his antics. I told him to shut up. I don't like it.
After 7 days of testimony in Curtis Lovelace's second murder trial, the jury continues hearing closing arguments.
So here we are. What has the state shown? Corey died from suffocation, and he did it.
Prosecutor David Robinson.
He had a motive. She was an alcoholic, she yelled at him, she yelled at the kids, and that night he had enough. The state asked me to find Curtis Lovelace guilty of murder beyond reasonable doubt.
There is no evidence in this case that this woman was smothered. She died a natural death. They have no murder weapon. They have no forensic evidence. I mean, he went out trying to prove a case where there was no crime.
This is a rebuttal, and I won't keep you long. I got good news for you. I'm not going to take long. Because he committed a stupid crime. This Mr. Smart man here, and you can do your job now, because the only thing that makes sense here is that she was suffocated. Thank you.
And with that, the jury began their deliberations.
This case is stated in these instructions, and it's your duty to follow all of them.
I believe in everything we did, every step that we took. It was a search for the truth.
Then, in little more than 2 hours, all parties were called back to the courthouse. Unlike in the first trial, this time the jury had reached a verdict.
We were prepared in our minds, in our heart, for whatever the verdict was.
So this time, at least you know there's going to be an answer.
We know there's going to be an answer, but still, knowing that 12 people have our fate and our future and our children's future in their hands is scary.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Curtis T. Lovelace, not guilty. Signed by the foreperson and 11 jurors.
Thank you. Would anybody like the jury poll?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
More than 10 years after Corey died, and 2 trials accusing him for the murder of his wife, Curtis Lovelace, surrounded by his 3 sons, walks out of the courtroom a free man.
We put our trust in God, and we put our trust in the legal system, and we weren't let down. And so it's a great day for our family, a great day for all of our friends, and we're just thankful.
Kurt had absolutely nothing to do with his wife's death, and the jury saw that.
Prosecutor Ed Parkinson is clearly upset by the quick decision.
Disappointed, but the jury has spoken, so that's the end of it.
But just days after the verdict, Curtis Lovelace told 48 Hours that he and Christine still have a lot of questions about Detective Adam Gibson's investigation.
Clearly, I don't appreciate what he's done to me and my family, and whatever happens with Adam Gibson happens with Adam Gibson. There's truth, and I believe the truth will come out.
You intend to pursue how and why this all happened?
I think those are questions we want answered.
The family remains deeply divided by the legal saga now behind them. Curtis, Christine, and the 3 boys have not spoken to Lindsay since the day Curtis was arrested in 2014.
I don't think by our choice. We were advised not to engage in a relationship with people who were possibly against Kurt.
So do you see a day when
we hope so? We talk
everyone
about
is
it
together?
We talk about it often.
Is that on the docket of things to do?
You know, I think we'd all like to see reconciliation. I'm just not sure how that happens. I'm sure it's going to be difficult.
For now, Lindsay says she is working to move forward with her own life, inspired by her mother's memory.
My mom was a beautiful person. She touched so many people. She was passionate, but that's the kind of person she was, and that's the kind of person I try to be.
Hours presents.
This is Officer the Houston Police Department, Major Offenders Division, Career Criminal Squad.
Hey, my name is Valerie McDaniel. I've always tried to be an honest, kind person. I've tried to live the best life I can.
Valerie wound up being the top of the class.
The valedictorian?
The valedictorian in our 1987 high school graduating class. She sure did.
My name is Megan. She's my second cousin. She's generous and creative, smart, nice and sweet. She would always like take care of my dog.
I wasn't sure if I should be a vet anymore, and Valerie brought that passion back. I know that Valerie made an audio recording of all of her memorable moments in life.
I met through friends a man named Mac McDaniel. And I thought he was the cutest thing. Tall and skinny with his boots.
Valerie and Mac lived a lavish lifestyle.
A high-end life, you know, a life of luxury, a life of beauty.
Great cars. Valerie had a Mercedes. Her daughter went to a great school. They worked a lot. That was a big thing. They'd both be working and...
But did they seem happy together?
Yeah, it seemed great.
One morning at work, there was a note on my desk that said, Dr. McDaniel, call Miss Brown. She said, I've been your husband's lover.
It tore her up. Divorce is never an easy thing. She met Leon.
A medical doctor. He actually went to the same school I did. A little bit of ER, but then also like cardio and transplant.
I looked at him and smiled, and he smiled back, and just a beautiful person.
Her face, her smile, she had this outwardly exuberance of energy that I really can't describe.
She fell for Leon. She was madly in love with him.
We were planning on getting married. Mac always wanted more, at the detriment of their daughter.
My name is Motaz Aziz, and Lee and Jacob tried to hire me as a hitman.
In the car, did he give you $2,500?
Yeah, he paid the $2,500.
In cash?
Yes, in cash, right.
And what did you see on his face?
Excitement. He was enjoying it. Like, he actually was excited about the whole thing.
I could never hurt the man that my daughter loves so much.
The male subject, he's gone. He's done.
All right.
This has been a long, drawn-out story that's led to an unbelievable conclusion.
When he came into my office, he shut the door. He said, I'm Dr. Leon Jacob. I felt like I was talking to Satan himself.
"48 Hours, Operation Murder," reported by Peter Van Sant.
Yes, ma'am. It's going to be a major offenders investigation.
It's 3 a.m. on Friday, March 10th, 2017. Houston police are making their way to the 7th floor condo of beloved veterinarian Valerie McDaniel. Bad doesn't begin to describe what's about to be revealed.
Greg's husband's been found. It looks like it turns out to be a fatality.
Valerie ex-husband Mac, police tell her, was dead just 6 months after their divorce had become final.
Do you have anybody you can call to help you, to stay with you?
But how could Valerie's life have arrived at this dreadful moment? Valerie earned her degree in veterinary medicine at Texas A&M. It was during that time she met Mac McDaniel, Valerie's friend, Greg Holloway.
My impression of Mac is that he was a good man. He was a stand-up guy.
Mac proposed, and Valerie had the man of her dreams, as she describes in that recording of her memories.
We did get married. We had a beautiful fairy tale wedding. Moved into a house that my parents had bought for me to live in.
Not long after that, Valerie decided to open her own clinic. Valerie's cousin, Cody Bernard.
I admired her. It sunk something inside of me. I want to do that one day, something big, you know.
Mac was her office manager, but even as the vet clinic thrived, the two longed for something more.
She said she couldn't have any children, so the only option was to adopt.
In 2008, the couple adopted a daughter when she was just 2 days old. But as their new family came together, their marriage began to fall apart. It started, Valerie says, with a phone call from a stranger, the woman who claimed to have been Mac's lover. But Valerie says that wasn't all.
She gave me lists of women that he had slept with.
Valerie says she confronted Mac and forgave him, but claims it wasn't long before Mac cheated again.
And that was the first time I ever said the word divorce, and I yelled it at him outside, and I yelled it and I yelled it.
Valerie says she forgave Mac yet again, but then a chance encounter would change the course of her life. Leon Jacob, the son of Valerie's neighbor, Golda Jacob, stopped by.
He ran up to me and stuck his hand out and introduced himself. The cockiest mother ever met in my life.
Valerie was in her mid-40s, but she was stunning, both inside and out.
The attraction was mutual.
You could tell he knew how beautiful he was. And I was lonely.
Leon Jacob was 8 years younger than Valerie and a doctor.
What type of surgeries have you done?
All kinds of surgeries. I've assisted in heart, kidney, pancreas, transplants.
With a strained home life and an attractive new friend, what happened next may have been inevitable.
And he sat across from me and we had some wine and I had my feet out on the chair next to him. And just out of the blue, he reached out and just ran his finger up my left foot. And that was it. It was like a movie moment.
It's quite an interlude, according to what she described.
Yeah, compliments all around, I guess.
In December 2014, Valerie filed for divorce, claiming Mac committed adultery. Mac's attorneys told us Mac had no comment about the divorce petition and the claims Valerie made in her audio diary. Between Mac's alleged cheating and Valerie's new love interest, both wanted out of the marriage. The divorce was finalized in August 2016. Valerie and her daughter then moved into this building in the upscale River Oaks section of Houston. Not long after, Leon joined them here.
The relationship really blossomed quickly because we had been very close friends for so long.
Dr. Brittany King worked alongside Valerie at the vet clinic.
They seem very much in love, holding hands and loving towards each other.
But there was one old problem in Valerie and Leon's new relationship, and his name was Mac.
There were multiple times in the clinic where she would just be in tears. Was everything okay? And it was something surrounding her ex-husband.
Mac had found out that Leon was staying with me.
There'd be arguments or stuff with the child, visitation.
But Leon had his own issues with past loves, one involving extreme mental cruelty and another, assault and stalking charges.
Leon Jacob is a predator. He's scary.
Samantha Connect is a Harris County Assistant District Attorney.
He wants what he wants, and he'll stop at nothing to get it.
Could there be more to Valerie's new love than she can imagine?
He has no problem using women. In fact, I think he enjoys it.
Valerie McDaniel's new live-in boyfriend grew up in a Texas-sized world of beauty, opulence, and opportunity.
I always wanted to be a doctor my whole life, ever since I was about 3 or 4.
As he pursued his degrees, Leon met and married his college sweetheart. They had 2 boys.
We had a happy, loving family. I got 2 great kids, 2 boys. They're the most important things to me in my life.
A good family, and now with an MD after his name, Leon was well on his way. But Leon's picture-perfect life disguised a troubled relationship. After 12 years of marriage, his wife filed for divorce, citing extreme mental cruelty. And 1 year later, Leon was arrested for stalking his now ex.
Leon has to be in control. When his ex-wife went to end their relationship, he wasn't going to have it, and he wasn't going to go down without a fight.
Leon, isn't it true that you've had brushes with the law involving stalking, cyber stalking, intimidation, physical harassment, assault? Aren't all those true?
I pled guilty to a attempted cyber harassment charge that was stemming from an acrimonious divorce that I went through with my previous wife.
Leon admits that he called often, but he claims it was simply to speak with his boys.
I tried desperately to contact my kids over and over and over again, and I'm not going to apologize for that.
Leon finally moved on to a new residency and was living in Pittsburgh, where he met this woman, 33-year-old Megan Veracas.
I met Megan in a hotel in Pittsburgh. She was the assistant general manager there.
The new couple moved to Houston. There were lavish vacations, family get-togethers, and yet another residency, Leon's 7th.
He's a failed doctor. He's been kicked out of every residency program he's ever been a part of.
And what's the problem? What was the basis of these dismissals? Do you know?
The belief that he was the smartest guy in the room, inability to get along with people, inability to get along with patients. And in fact, one of the records that we found said that they believed that he was a danger to patients and that he would be a liability for them to keep around.
3 years into their relationship, Megan Veracas thought Leon was a threat to her too. Megan kicked Leon out of their apartment, later accusing him of assaulting her.
She wanted me to move all my stuff out. She came there and was very hostile. The police were called. There was no violence of any kind. And a day later, she claimed that I had hit her.
And that you'd put your hand over her mouth.
Yeah, which is not true.
Leon is about Leon.
Smile, Megan, smile.
It frustrated him to no end that Megan Veracas would not forgive him. And the fact that he couldn't get Megan back frustrated him and angered him.
Leon was arrested in February 2017 for assault and stalking.
You can charge anybody with anything. It doesn't mean that you're guilty of that.
The DA's office has been on this case since its inception. We helped.
Prosecutors are convinced that Leon knew his future as a doctor would be destroyed if Megan testified against him. So they believe he planned a little operation to make his pain go away.
He feels like if Megan disappears, if she goes away, that his criminal case will go away and he can resume his career as this beloved surgeon that he thinks that he is.
Prosecutors claim Leon decided what he needed was a hitman, and he thought he'd found one.
Taz, are you a hitman?
No.
Were you ever willing to murder anyone for money?
No. I would never do something like that.
Taz Azay was introduced to Leon by a mutual acquaintance.
Did Leon ever tell you how he wanted his ex-girlfriend to be killed?
Yes, he actually offered suggestions. One of them was a syringe to the heart with potassium would give her a heart attack, and that would actually kill her.
Taz is a decorated former U.S. Army soldier who saw Leon's deadly demand as an opportunity to save a life.
I saw somebody in danger, and I knew that I can do something about it, and I did something about it.
Leon knew Taz by the code name Zach. He says Leon wanted him to kidnap Megan, first to talk her into taking him back, and if that didn't work, leaving town. But that wasn't all.
If she doesn't leave, what are you gonna do? And he was like, I want you to kill her.
I'm not going to comment on any of this. It's just ridiculous.
Taz says Leon paid him $9,000, which he happily spent.
To be honest, I don't feel bad that I spent Jacob's money. Matter of fact, I feel really good I spent his money. Yeah.
Then the man Leon knew as Zach vanished.
Leon Jacob was one of the most unique individuals I'd ever met.
Bail bondsman Michael Kubosh.
This guy was focused, was very intimidating. Didn't shake my hand, just wanted to know one thing. I want Zach's number. He said, I've paid Zach a lot of money to take care of this. I felt like I was talking to the devil himself.
Tucked away on a side street in Houston is perhaps the most colorful bail bondsman in all of Texas.
Having hung out a bit with you, you are the Elvis of bail bondsmen. You have such...
His name is Michael Kubosh.
These are people that we're looking for, fugitives.
And he understands the criminal mind.
I deal with the nicest, the kindest, and the meanest people on the face of the earth. I've bonded out judges, prostitutes, preachers, missionaries.
He's also a larger-than-life member of the Houston City Council, who helped save lives during Hurricane Harvey.
I can see you've been really working hard. I know all the major law enforcement people in the whole county.
Leon had stormed into Kubosh's office.
He said, I've paid Zach a lot of money to take care of this. I said, take care of what? He said, I want her out of the picture. And she can't be testifying against me.
Out of the picture.
Out of the picture. I believe that he meant ill toward this woman. And that's why I called the chief.
The chief of?
The chief of police in Houston, Texas.
A search for the mysterious Zach was triggered, and investigators quickly learned his real name, Taz Azay, a name that Kubosh did recognize as a former military man who is facing a misdemeanor theft charge for stealing from his roommate.
He was on bond with me. He was still free.
It took Houston police about a week to find Taz, and that's when things got really interesting.
To me, Taz seemed genuinely concerned for Megan.
This man is an undercover officer with the Houston Police Department who goes by the name Detective Javier.
He didn't want to see her hurt.
So Taz agreed to participate in a sting operation to help catch Leon Jacob in the act of soliciting a murder.
Hello? Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, buddy?
Taz told Leon that he felt he had grown too close to him and Valerie, and thought it best to hire another hitman. And he knew just the right guy.
Can you meet me tomorrow? Yeah, I'll clear my schedule, no problem.
The next day, Taz would introduce Leon to his new hitman, undercover detective Javier. But before Taz could hang up, Leon dropped a bomb.
We're taking care of both problems. What, both problems? Both of the individuals that we're talking about. Okay.
Valerie McDaniel, Leon's new girlfriend, the mild-mannered veterinarian who friends had described as an angel, wanted her ex-husband murdered.
Valerie wants to talk to you about what she wants to do with her ex-husband. Okay, that's good. All right, just bring her with you tomorrow.
The next day, Leon and Valerie met with Taz and Detective Javier at this Olive Garden to discuss the fate of both their exes over lunch.
The entire operation was recorded.
The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours and began with Leon's target, Megan.
I don't want you to hurt her, but I want her to go.
He told me that he wanted me to run her off the road and threaten her, but then he would say to me, if she does not understand that, then you do what you have to do.
If those options don't work, I don't give a then we gotta do what we gotta do.
There was no doubt in my mind that Leon wanted Megan killed.
The subject then turned to Valerie's target, her ex-husband, Mac.
Say if something would happen to him, would it be like a car wreck or?
It could be a car wreck. It could be a robbery gone wrong. She was under the belief that I was going to carjack him and I was going to put a bullet in his head, which is exactly what I told her I was going to do. But you need to give me the go ahead. You want to do that?
He's gonna take my daughter.
The next day, March 9th, 2017, Detective Javier called Leon to say he had good news that he insisted on delivering in person.
How are you, my friend?
He went to their home where he informed them Mac was dead. Neither wanted to see this photo, which seemed to show Mac with a gunshot to the head.
When Valerie got the news that her husband was dead, was she emotional about it? Did she say, oh my God, I never wanted to go this far?
She did not show that.
What they didn't know is that Mac was alive and well. He'd posed for those photos as part of this elaborate sting operation. Believing Mac was dead, Leon set his sights on Megan.
So you're gonna snatch her and you're gonna bring her somewhere and talk to her.
That's the plan.
If I need to show up, you call me.
Later that night, these staged photographs of Megan were texted to Leon, and he was told she was so out of control, she had to be killed.
She's dead. She's gone.
I don't want to know anything.
On that scale of good to evil, in your mind, what is Leon Jacob?
Leon is a very evil person. He was willing to do whatever he needed to do to survive.
It was probably around 2 or 3 in the morning.
On March 10th, 2017, Valerie McDaniel and her live-in boyfriend Leon Jacob get a wake-up call from Sergeant Frank Quinn that will soon lead to an Oscar-winning performance.
What's going on? She lets them inside, but she feigns surprise. She can't understand why they're there.
Remember, just hours before, Detective Javier, posing as a hitman, had told her that Mac was dead. But now Valerie has to convince police she is hearing it for the first time.
Sorry to have to tell you. Have you heard from him recently?
She pretends to be upset. She puts her head in her hands. She sits down and she acts like she's completely shocked and surprised that her ex-husband is dead.
Is your boyfriend here with you? You think you can kind of be a little help to us now?
This surreal scene, caught by the body cameras of Houston police, is about to reach its climax.
We were hoping you could help us. We had to deliver some bad news to her for our ex-husband's been found tonight. Oh my God. It was like, might have been a robbery gone wrong. We're just trying to if anybody knows anything or... No, I'll not be able to help us.
Are you okay, baby? We've been here all night. We were here all day with their daughter, and we were watching movies. We haven't been out of the house all day except...
Then the cops decide to call cut on all this bad acting.
Right now, we're going to read you your rights. Me? Because both of you are being arrested for solicitation of capital murder.
It is only then that the couple learns that both their intended targets are alive and well.
I don't know why I'm being arrested.
Leon is led out.
Can I get a sweatshirt? I'm already cold.
And Valerie has a much bigger concern. Her daughter, who's been asleep in the apartment this whole time. Although not caught on camera, Mac arrives to pick up their 8-year-old.
And what did Valerie say to her?
You know, something along the lines of just, you know, taking you to your daddy's outside and he's going to take you. And it was very benign and, you know, just normal as could be.
And so all of a sudden on the news media came the arrest of 2 doctors.
A Houston woman and her boyfriend were charged with trying to have their exes killed.
And I'm laying there thinking, well, that's not the Valerie I know. And they show the film of her going up for her arraignment.
Did you about fall out of your chair?
That almost rolled out of the bed.
Because Leon has those other pending charges related to Megan, he doesn't make bail. But Valerie does.
Valerie was rushed out the jail alongside family after
and goes home to wait for the legal process to play out.
I remember texting her throughout the week and calling her and constantly sending her, I love you, you know, we can get through this. So happy you're out.
Valerie's veterinary license got suspended because of the charges. Brittany says Valerie was weighed down by her arrest and the prospect she wouldn't be seeing her daughter for a long, long time. She visited Valerie at her high-rise condo.
But I remember giving her a hug goodbye, and I just felt the life in the eyes was not there.
It's weird, things, it wasn't like bam, 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 progression. Things just gradually happened.
2 weeks after the shock and shame of being charged with solicitation of capital murder, Valerie McDaniel used her iPad,
March 25th, it's been a few days,
to record her side of the story.
I didn't wake up one day and just say, hey, I want to kill my ex-husband.
For Valerie, everything she loved was slipping away.
I want to talk to my daughter. I want to talk to Leon. I'm just not strong enough. I wish I were. I just can't do it. I just can't do it.
2 days after her final recording, on March 27, 2017, Valerie, who once seemed unstoppable, did the unthinkable. She climbed over this very railing and jumped 7 stories to her death.
She wanted me to be home with her and we were going to get through this. And it was devastating and shocking.
I think that she was in a very vulnerable position when she met Leon Jacob. But I think he influenced her and brainwashed her.
I'm innocent. And as a human being and as a physician, that thought of killing somebody else just goes against everything in my nature.
It really depends on what they find.
Leon has hired one of the top defense attorneys in Texas, George Parnham, who says Valerie McDaniel was the one calling all the shots.
I'm sorry for her demise, but I believe that Valerie is and was responsible for this entire scenario.
That she was the driver. She was the financier of all of this.
That is my understanding.
The question now, what will a jury think? On March 20th, 2018, a week before the first anniversary of Valerie's suicide,
this is the state of Texas versus Leon Philip Jacob.
Leon alone stands trial on 2 counts of solicitation of capital murder.
One of the things you'll learn about Leon Jacob is he has to be in control. Mac was going to die and Megan was going to die.
Cameron Callaghan is Samantha Connect's co-prosecutor. He says Leon's motive was clear.
There was 2 obstacles to the defendant's new life with Valerie McDaniel. It was Mac and it was Megan. Mac could keep Valerie away from him by making Valerie choose between the defendant and her daughter, and Megan could make him end up in prison.
George Parnham's co-counsel, Matthew Pospisil, claims that it was the undercover officer whose identity we're protecting by calling Detective Javier who pushed Valerie and Leon to make a deadly choice.
If it was not for Officer trying to make this into a television story and force his own narrative, Leon would not be forced here today to tell his story.
All right, thank you all. Please be seated. Let's continue.
Testimony begins with some of the early stops on this long road to justice, starting with Megan.
He didn't want her to testify against him, and he had paid somebody a lot of money to make sure that she wouldn't be here to testify against him.
He actually wanted me to make her disappear. Basically, he wanted her gone, like that.
Call your next witness, please.
Before the trial concludes, 2 potential victims will rise from the dead to take the stand.
Could you please introduce yourself to the members of our jury?
And the jury will hear from Leon, who says he's only guilty of being a Casanova.
I have no problem sitting here and saying that I slept with Valerie 7 days after Megan and I broke up. But I'm not on trial for being a womanizer. I'm on trial for solicitation of capital murder. So you can assassinate my character all you want up here. It doesn't make me guilty of what you've charged me with.
One of the prosecution's strongest witnesses, Megan Veracruz, Leon's ex-girlfriend, who had filed assault charges against him in January 2017, takes the stand.
It was a long time coming. I tried to leave several times.
She recalls Leon coming to the house where she was staying just after the alleged incident.
I obviously didn't want to be near him, so I hid in a closet.
Why did you hide in a closet?
Because I was afraid of Leon. He came in and was screaming and yelling, and he said, "I know that bitch is here."
Megan says Leon kept pursuing her when she was at work.
He was in the bushes outside on a cell phone, waiting for me.
And when she drove to her new home.
At that point, I called 911 to let them know that, my ex-boyfriend who assaulted me was in a car behind me. And then at some point, Leon had gotten out of his vehicle in front of mine, just yelling and waving his hands, saying, just talk to me, I need to talk to you.
Leon was arrested a second time on stalking charges on February 16th, 2017. Less than 10 days after that, Megan was contacted by police and warned her life could be in danger. She fled to her hometown of Pittsburgh, but police soon called her to return to Houston to be part of that sting operation.
I sat in a chair in a warehouse, and they zip-tied my hands and my feet and put duct tape around my mouth to make me look as if I had been kidnapped. I was crying and really upset.
Next, it was Valerie's ex-husband, Mac McDaniel's turn.
We were married for 17 years and divorced in 2016.
He recalled finding out his ex-wife was living with Leon.
What was your initial reaction to that?
My initial reaction was not good.
And why was that?
Because I was aware of his history, his criminal history.
Did you convey to Valerie that you did not want the defendant around your daughter on the weeks that she had custody?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she agree to that?
She did.
At some point, did you learn that she was not abiding by the agreement?
I did.
Mac tells the jury he too was notified he was the target of a murder plot. Then the prosecution shows the jury that photo.
Can you describe for the members of the jury what you're doing here?
Staging my own death.
Did they pour blood on you?
Pig's blood.
3 days into the 5-day-long trial, it's the defense's turn. They call their star witness.
I never asked anybody to kill anybody.
Does the word kill, hurt, harm in any way, shape, or form appear in any of those recorded conversations?
Not on my behalf, except for to exclude them from things I want done. I never asked to have anybody hurt, killed, harmed, kidnapped, or I never asked for anybody to be in any way physically hurt.
But the prosecution says that's not true.
She's dead. She's gone.
I don't want anything.
And they claim those undercover tapes back that up.
Did you not want anybody hurt when you said, inject her with potassium chloride, stop her heart, untraceable?
I said that was something you could do. I didn't say that for him to do that.
Did you recall telling the undercover officer, if those options don't work, I don't give a then you gotta do what you gotta do because my survival is more important?
Yes.
Leon's own words come back to haunt him, regarding Mac as well. After the undercover officer proposed a fatal carjacking,
It could be a robbery gone wrong.
Leon offered $10,000 in 4 weekly installments.
So you're agreeing to give him $2,500 just after he tells you, I'm gonna put a bullet in his head and throw him on the street.
If that's what you say.
Well, that's in the recording. It's not what I say. It's what Javier and you said, right?
I guess.
Leon and the defense team tried to make their point that the undercover officer was pressuring them into making deadly decisions.
I kept on telling them I didn't want anybody hurt, and they kept on going back to the theme of killing people. I felt a lot of pressure from them to sort of commit to this idea of killing people, and that was never my intent.
Were you asking them just to threaten people?
Essentially, yes.
Did you actually want any harm to come to anybody?
No.
But the prosecution points out that when Leon thought Megan was tied up and refusing to cooperate, he did nothing to stop the lethal final step.
You'd agree with me that you never said, no, I don't want you to do anything. Stop this. You didn't say anything like that, did you?
No.
The jury gets the case.
Has the jury reached unanimous verdicts?
And takes just an hour and 15 minutes before returning to the courtroom.
Will the jury find the defendant Leon Philip Jacob guilty of solicitation of capital murder as charged in the indictment?
Leon is found guilty on both counts of conspiring to have Megan and Mac killed. The trial moves to the sentencing phase. The same jury that found Leon guilty will decide his punishment. New testimony begins.
I have no sense of trust. Just constantly afraid that something else is going to happen.
The only thing that might impact Leon's sentence more than the words of his ex-girlfriend may end up being the words of his ex-wife.
The state calls Annie Morrison.
Annie Morrison has flown in from Chicago to testify.
Yes, there was a time that we got into a fight and he pulled a knife on me. There was one time he pushed my head down onto the counter and bruised my face near my eye.
Annie recounts an incident she says occurred when she was 7 months pregnant with their second child.
He threatened to punch me in the stomach. He kicked my legs. I remember bringing my legs up as far as I could toward my chest to try to protect my stomach. He threatened that if I ever left, that he would kill me. He said that nobody would ever find my body because he was a doctor and he had access to chemicals that would dissolve my body.
Annie did leave, moving to her parents' home in Chicago. That's when Leon started threatening her parents.
Thank you, Judge. May I publish State's Exhibit number 81 to the jury?
As the jury heard in this recording Annie made of a phone call with Leon.
The defendant, please stand.
The jury took just 1 hour to decide Leon Jacobs' sentence. Life in prison on each count. Solicitation of capital murder for Megan Veracruz and Mac McDaniel.
Victim impact statement, please.
In Texas, the victim impact statements come after the sentence. Megan takes the stand one last time.
You will never see your children grow up. You will not be a part of their lives, and they will be better for it. You destroyed me financially and took away my sense of security, but you can do that no more. While you sit in jail, I hope you think of me, the girl that you called poor and uneducated, because it's because of me you will be in prison for life.